Chapter 831. After repeatedly testing the boundaries of Rolina's rampage, he found that once the loyalty reached the current standard, even if her tone of speaking remained cold, she would no longer call for violence and killing. When Fang Hao joked with her, she would respond with a couple of lines, but her tone was disinterested, as if she was just going through the motions. Rolina's fate wasn't very fortunate either. She fell in love with a human city lord and was blinded by love. Ultimately, she was dismembered and buried in pieces. That's why people in the territory were scared of her. The most enduring image was of when she resurrected, losing her mind outside the territory. Back then, like a madwoman, she smashed deep pits into the ground, trapping her silver coffin, which was directly crumpled into a lump of silver. The scene was exceptionally frightening. Therefore, Rolina was highly averse to men. Even her lifesaver, Fang Hao, had such a slow increase in loyalty. If it were someone else joking with her, their head would be twisted off. Amanda is not at Blood Castle, she must have gone to lead people to scout out the terrain. These days, blood hunters have been following Amanda out, Rolina said softly. Right, going to war with Odis directly could present the 100 Cities Federation with an opportunity to target us, so we should let Odis and the Federation start the war first, then we can sneak attack them. Fine, these conspiracies and tricks are what you're best at, said Rolina. What is that supposed to mean? Rolina turned her head away, showing no intention of explaining. At that moment, a private message alert came from the Book of Lords. It was a message from Li Rong. Fang Hao, Cao Genzi has already leaked the message to Su Haid, who then went to the church after that. Letting Cao Genzi reveal the information to Su Haid was part of their plan. The most chaotic way for transmigrators to receive information was through the regional channel. Su Haid was also very likely not to doubt the reliability of the information. Has the church made any moves? Fang Hao continued asking. Li Rong replied, 10 minutes ago, the Archbishop's carriage headed to the Hall of Justice. It's very likely because of this matter, we will need to inquire further later for specific details. Li Rong, as an established figure in Silver Wing City, had also made acquaintances with some of the city's noble ladies. Occasionally, she would receive invitations to attend the social gatherings, dinner parties, and balls of the nobility. Given some time, it wouldn't be hard for her to find out some information. In fact, judging by Su Haid's route, the church's visit to the Hall of Justice was indeed about the great cemetery of Odis affairs. It was basically unnecessary to confirm it again. As long as Silver Wing City took this matter seriously and started investigating and scouting the great cemetery of Odis, it would be good news for Fang Hao. Pruel City to the north would no longer be the focus of Silver Wing City's attention. He wouldn't need to keep tight control over his own side. After conveying the church's message, Li Rong brought up a second matter. Li Rong said, in Silver Wing City, I have a way to learn magic spells. What do you think? Is there potential? Mage Association. You know about it. I have a client from the Mage Association, and I'm thinking of joining the association and switching to the Mage class. The Mage class among the current transmigrator forces really did not have many people who switched to it. Most had chosen physical strength potions. Indeed, a robust body is what allows someone to live longer before truly learning magic spells. Now that Li Rong had the opportunity to join the Mage Association, it was actually a good thing. Not only could she learn magic, but she was also planting her own person inside the Mage Association. Of course, you can, this is an opportunity for you. Afterward, you will be a noble mage, Fang Hao said teasingly. Then, are you interested in conquering a noble mage? I have an enlightening potion here for you to see if it's of any use. It's useful, I've been worried about not having a way to buy it. Fang Hao laughed and put up the enlightening potion for direct trade. Li Rong completed the transaction immediately on her end and sent over a kissy face, ending the conversation with Li Rong. When Fang Hao looked up again, he found that Rolina had already left. He looked around and saw her gesturing to a few skeletons who were working on the city wall. It seemed that she cared more about Blood Castle than he had thought. Fang Hao didn't have anything else to do. He opened the regional channel again for his daily peek to see what everyone was chatting about. Afraid of missing out on any hot topics and falling out of sync with the thoughts of the transmigrators. Buying 500 tiles, chat privately if you have them, peddlers, stay away. Selling a blueprint for a blue one-handed sword, private chat with your offer, highest bidder gets it. Green one-handed sword in exchange for photos of ladies. Fang Hao blocked the ads. Have you heard? The dwarf war is over. What? Are those dwarves bullying others again? No, I heard they were defeated by the undead and suffered miserably, even the king is dead. Spreading rumors, hey? I have accurate info, my friend just got released by the dwarves, he said he was rescued by a transmigrator, a amazing one, but he refuses to say who. Nonsense, how can a transmigrator overthrow a power? If they can eradicate a stronghold, that would already be god tier. Exactly, with the development of transmigrators, at most they could arm wrestle with a small city. Conquering a power seems rather unlikely. I can confirm, I am the friend of the rumor-spreading brother, I was rescued by a transmigrator, a beautiful woman flying in F-22. Chapter 832. Damn it! If I hadn't seen an F-22, I would have believed it. You guys think, is there any possibility it's Fang Hao's people? His troops are the undead, and they're so badass. Impossible. He's only just transmigrated a few months ago. Unless he has ballistic missiles, even an F-22 couldn't take down a whole dwarf area. You can't be sure about that with Fang Hao. He's so badass, maybe he's developed enough to take down dwarf territory. That's really not possible. When you guys said the dwarves started the war, Fang Hao was in Silverwing City. I was grilling skewers for him, there's no way he could be at war with the dwarves. Still on about the damn skewers, I'm done. Fang Hao looked at everyone's chat and felt somewhat amused. The transmigrators rescued from Grey Iron City were sent back to their respective territories. But at the same time, they were instructed not to divulge any information about this place. If they didn't know each other's locations, the channel was lawless. But now that they knew each other inside out, they all became good, tight-lipped, kind-hearted citizens. Inside the channel, no one knew Grey Iron City was taken down by Dongjiayu, not even the 100 Cities Federation. After watching for a while, he closed the Book of Lords. He stayed at Blood Castle until dusk, then after giving a couple of instructions to Rolina, he finally released the teleportation screen and returned to the main city. Evening. Back to the main city. After dinner, Fang Hao soaked in the hot spring, reclining at the edge of the pool. There was nothing more leisurely and comfortable than a soak in a hot spring before sleep after a tiring day. If there was, it'd be soaking in the hot springs with a bunch of bunny maidens by your side. Ira, Little White, and Rebecca, who joined later in the evening. Regarding this mature big sister, Fang Hao was quite attentive. Moreover, Rebecca had become increasingly clingy, she really missed Fang Hao after not seeing him for a few days. About Rebecca's arrival, Ira and Little White both widened their eyes, looking back and forth between her and Fang Hao non-stop. Without even thinking, it was clear what their relationship was. And Angia, who had already known about their relationship, went out to play and had not yet returned. Rebecca knew Fang Hao had other women by his side. And what those young, beautiful maids did for the nobility was no secret among the nobles. If Fang Hao hadn't touched a single bunny or fox girl, that would actually be more suspicious. She didn't care so much about Fang Hao having other women. But it was their first meeting, and in such a situation, she was still somewhat uncomfortable. Her face was as cold as ever, slipping into a long blue robe that revealed her lotus root-like arms and beautiful legs. The three women gathered. Yet they gave off three different vibes. Ira was the gentle housewife type, Little White was brimming with youthful energy, and Rebecca was the aloof queen. Seeing her standing at the edge of the pool with a flitting gaze, Fang Hao stood up and extended a hand, "Grab onto me." Rebecca placed her hand in his palm and was led down into the rejuvenation spring step by step. Fang Hao introduced with a smile, "This is Rebecca, the city lord of Lyss City." Then he said to Rebecca, "This is Ira and Little White, from now on, we're all family." The words family came out. And Rebecca's cheeks turned even redder. In her heart, she cursed to herself, wishing that if she had known it would be like this, she would have made Fang Hao stay with her. To avoid the awkwardness. But after all, she had rubbed shoulders with the Federation's circle for so long, she knew to keep calm when something happened. At least she couldn't let anything show on the outside. After hearing Fang Hao's introduction, she nodded slightly, with an air of someone who had known all along, "Hello, Ira, Little White." The two of them also nodded back in response, "Hello, Sister Rebecca." Ira and Little White were both very young. Ira was slightly older, but not even 20, and Little White was even younger. Added up, they were still not as old as Rebecca. Rebecca smiled and nodded, and then sat down at the side. Fang Hao smiled and said, "This is rejuvenation spring, it's good for the body and also has great effects on the skin." "Oh." Rebecca quietly acquiesced. Just when the atmosphere was a bit awkward. Pat pat pat. Footsteps came from the front courtyard. Soon, the door to the backyard was flung open with a bang, and Angia, with Lori in tow, ran in. Without even getting a clear look at the people around, they leaped up high. With a splash, they jumped into the pool. Behind them, Lori, holding a red parrot, also leaped high, creating 2 splashes of water. Once the mist settled, Angia finally took a good look at the number of people around. There was one more person. Rebecca," Angia spoke up. "Angia, Lori." "Ah," Angia responded, then turned to Ira and the others, saying, "That's Rebecca, the one I told you about who's really good at Go. Both Lori and I mostly lose to her." "Yeah, even the city lord often struggles to beat her," Lori chimed in from the side. Now Ira and Little White realized that the wife of the city lord Angia mentioned was the person in front of them. They've heard she's a formidable woman, managing a big city all by herself. "I can teach you, the technique is actually quite simple," Rebecca said with a smile. With the addition of Angia and Lori, the atmosphere around the hot spring pool became much more relaxed. The women gradually found some common topics and began to chat. Seeing the women chatting happily, Fang Hao wasn't in a rush to leave. He took a sip of the fruit wine Little White passed him and opened the Book of Lords, continuing to monitor the chat. In the regional channel. "When is winter going to be over? Right now, I'm even afraid to take it out to pee. Scary stuff, the price of wood has surpassed that of iron ore. Once the heavy snow passes, I'm going to go out and strip trees, I'll make a killing off you rich bastards." "Idiot, after the heavy snow, the price of wood will drop. No need to point it out. Friendly reminder, the iron axes and picks sold by the great Fang Hao haven't changed in price, you can buy these wood-handled tools. Use the wood for fire and you're still left with iron as a resource, which is more cost-effective than buying wood directly. Damn it, if you say it out loud and Fang Hao sees it, what if he raises the prices? Damn it, the hot pot bases sold by the big man are so in demand, you can't even snatch them up. This kind of weather is indeed perfect for hot pot. Another day of being envious of the big man's life. Have you heard? Fang Hao's affiliated cities all have glass windows and various kinds of materials to fend off the cold. That's got to be a lie. The indigenous city next to my territory doesn't even have glass. Fang Hao may be awesome, but he only has it for himself, right? Those affiliated cities too. Exactly. Now you all have deified Fang Hao, thinking he has everything. You guys might not believe it, but I'll show you the photo my friend sent me, picture. Damn, it really is glass. Damn, damn. Well, that's just some of them, it can't be all of them. Don't disbelieve. My friend says the benefits of joining the big man Fang Hao's forces are very good. Not only is there glass, there are various materials, and even cannons. Damn, are we even in the same world? Isn't it all cold weapons? Where did the cannons come from? Humph. You're all just blabbering, while I've already privately messaged big man Fang Hao, requesting to join an affiliate city. At Zhou Mingnian, Alliance Hierarch, look at other alliances, look at what you've been handing out to us. Shit, don't tag me. The channel was still a raucous place. Although everyone was complaining about the cold winter, even afraid to pee. On the other hand, winter had reduced the occurrence of special accidents. Wild animals and indigenous people were hibernating, and the territories of the transmigrators were generally more stable as well. Even those bandits who came down the mountain to loot. As long as the city gates weren't opened voluntarily, with the current level of the transmigrator cities, the bandits couldn't even breach the city walls. Fang Hao was browsing the Book of Lords while occasionally accepting the food Little White brought to his mouth. After soaking for a while, the women's conversation got merrier. Instead, Fang Hao felt the discomfort of soaking for too long. He soon realized the women's topics gradually focused on him. Feeling the conversation becoming increasingly awkward and that it might affect his prestige, he got up, took the women upstairs to rest. Chapter 833. Time flew by, and before we knew it, 2 months had passed. People were still wearing cotton clothes, but the weather was no longer as bitterly cold as in winter. The snow that had accumulated before gradually began to melt, and the withered branches were slowly revealing hints of green. Spring had finally arrived. In these 2 months, Silverwing City, indeed, had stopped paying attention to the undead to the north of Pruel City. Even Suhaid had not bothered Li Rong again. Everything was developing in a stable manner. On Fang Hao's side, several human cities had not undergone any changes, and the various positions established by the city lord's mansion provided more people with opportunities to live. In the Orc region, at the border of Tasco Orc City, wars between tribes were incessant. The tribes plundered food and supplies from each other. Small tribes became the targets and prey of the powerful ones, and their fates were all quite miserable. Bronze Bull increased his forces at the border, and the tribe leaders who attempted to challenge him were strung up, their heads pierced and hung in the border areas, serving as a reminder to other orcs to think carefully with their not-so-clever heads before acting. The trolls showed little change as their numbers were small to begin with, and since Fang Hao had provided enough food for the winter, they did not cause any trouble. In Grey Iron City, Belarga had officially become the new leader, ascended to the throne he had long dreamed of, and began to formally manage all the affairs of Eight Peaks Mountain. Winter had acted like a pause button for everyone. All conflicts ceased, letting people spend the winter in peace and stability. Within the city walls, groups of skeletons, like an endless bone serpent, began to clear away the snow in the city. The maidservants, under the leadership of Ira and Little White, started to reorganize the flower beds, gathering together to discuss what kinds of flowers to plant this year. Or perhaps, whether to create a pattern to make the place look even more appealing. Even Shadow Stabber Morse, who hadn't gone out much during the winter, also stepped out of his room. He began to discuss with the maids. As one of the elves, Morse had a deep knowledge of plants and suggested some flowers that were beautiful, easy to care for, and fragrant. They were quickly adopted by the women, who went to the trade alliance to find the skeleton merchant Dijin to purchase the seeds. A group of women brandishing hoes and shovels heading to the trade alliance store was somewhat impactful indeed. At the city walls, Fang Hao, Dimitrija, Aseti, and others, all ascended the ramparts. Together with a group of skeleton dwarf engineers, they started to repair and replace the devices on top of the wall. After a few heavy snowfalls, without ever having been used, they were all somewhat damaged. City Lord, the equipment on the city walls has all been inspected. The damaged equipment has been sent back to the warehouse for repair by the skeleton engineers, Dimitrija reported after returning. Make sure to arrange the patrols around the territory properly, Fang Hao nodded and said. Understood, my lord, Dimitrija and Aseti nodded together. Fang Hao and the two heroes discussed the defense arrangements. Just as he planned to leave the city to continue checking on the troop hiding cave, a familiar sound suddenly arose. World Channel open. Territory Leaderboard open, Wealth Leaderboard open, Military Strength Leaderboard open, World Trade Function open. Fang Hao paused for a moment and promptly halted his steps. After giving a brief instruction to the two heroes, he sat down on a stone bench nearby, picked up the Book of Lords, and immediately flipped it open. Indeed, beyond the regional channel, there now appeared a world channel. Fang Hao opened the world channel, and messages began to rapidly flash past on the screen. Damn, there's a world channel too. Are you also from Earth or transmigrators from other planets? Greetings, brothers and sisters from other regions, my name is James Norman. No way, how are so many people still alive in such a brutal contest? This chat speed is absolutely insane. Selling female fish demons, slippery and smooth, interested parties message privately. Quick, check the top right corner of the world channel for the leaderboard, see if the big shots from your region are on it. My god, I'm so fierce and I'm not even on the list. Right, I consider myself quite formidable, even an alliance hierarch, and I'm not on the list. Is there something wrong with this list, or maybe the way they calculate it is flawed? It only tallies the top 100. There are too many people globally transported here, and some are more formidable than you. Is there a problem with that? Exactly, it's just that you're not strong enough, little brother. I'm ranked 100th. The person at the top of the territory leaderboard is actually named Fang Hao, judging by the name, he must be from Huaxia. Quite impressive. Holy cow! He's first in both the wealth and military strength leaderboards. Just who is he, taking so many first places like that? No, there's something wrong with this leaderboard system. Look at his military strength on the leaderboard. The number is simply unscientific. I suspect he's exploiting a bug in the system. Oh, my god, the military strength number is even longer than my social security number. The messages within the world channel were flying at breakneck speed. Basically everyone was talking about different things because by the time you finished typing, the message you wanted to respond to had already disappeared. But strangely, everyone seemed to have an unspoken understanding. They always managed to connect the topics as if they were responding to the person who posted just above them. In the world channel, everyone's messages were in different languages, including Chinese, English, or other languages from around the world. Chapter 834. But when it was sent, what you saw was all translated. So you didn't have to worry about not understanding. This ensured normal communication within the world channel. Fang Hao checked the world channel, everyone began to slowly discuss him. Ranked first. Was he ranked first? He was quite curious and began to look for the rankings option in the top right corner. 3 leaderboards were open: Territorial Leaderboard, Wealth Leaderboard, and Military Strength Leaderboard. He swept first place in all of them. For the Territorial Leaderboard, the calculation logic was the area of the territory opened. The specific method of estimation was unclear. Fang Hao's territory value was 170,000, while the second place was only 13,000. The difference was still significant. The second was the Wealth Leaderboard, calculated by the materials stored in the territory's warehouse and the reserves of funds available. His wealth value was estimated at 200 million Warfire coins, while the second place had only 7 million Warfire coin value. This point was actually very advantageous for Fang Hao. After all, he took the merchant route, and the area of his materials warehouse accounted for 1/5 of his city's area. The warehouse was full of equipment and materials he sold to others, all estimated in total. 200 million was actually an underestimate. The third was the Military Strength Leaderboard, which gave detailed valuation numbers. Tier 1 troops scored 1 point, level 2 2 points, and so on, followed by the evaluation of heroes. Mythical troops scored 100 points. Green heroes scored 1,000 points, each increase in tier added another 100 points. Blue heroes scored 10,000 points, each increase in tier added 500 points. Purple heroes 50,000 points, orange heroes 100,000, dark gold heroes 300,000. This surprised everyone in the world channel. The military strength evaluation appeared in lowercase digits. Fang Hao's military strength value was over 30 million. And the leaderboard was just a small section in the top right corner of the world channel. The length of the numbers spanned 4 lines, which was simply exaggerated. Additionally, what Fang Hao paid special attention to was that above the tier 10 troops, there were mythical troops. Mythical troops provided 100 points each. Fang Hao himself found these ranking numbers a bit exaggerated. With this method of calculation, it wasn't strange for him to rank first in all 3 categories. 2 of the categories were determined by quantity, which perfectly aligned with his hundredfold amplification. It would have been embarrassing if he didn't get first place. As for the land area, he leveled 8 Peaks Mountain, the Bloody Mountain Range, the Cold Wind Mountain Range, and Crescent Heights. The land area of these territories alone was enough to boost him to first place. Unless someone else had some special ability, and it had to be more exaggerated than his. Otherwise, it would be impossible to surpass him. However, being first in all 3 categories didn't make Fang Hao too happy. The emergence of the world channel also meant that they were no longer confined to their own regions. All the top transmigrators from all regions would gather on the same stage. His high-profile appearance in everyone's view was not necessarily a good thing. It could even affect his future development. Moreover, he had just managed to divert Suhaid and Silverwing City's attention to the Great Cemetery of Odis through Suhaid. This leaderboard ranking might just attract Suhaid's attention again, and continue to cause trouble for him. Otherwise, he really might need to make arrangements to eliminate this saint sooner. He refocused his attention on the Book of Lords. Fang Hao's regional channel was also exploding with activity. Did you guys see that? The world channel is all asking who Fang Hao is, it's like spam. I saw it. Fang Hao is first in all 3 leaderboards, literally sky-high powerful. They think there's a problem with the calculation of the leaderboards, saying the boss has exploited some bug to get these exaggerated values, otherwise, it wouldn't be possible. They know nothing. How could Fang Hao be something those little trash can imagine? Exactly, Fang Hao is too strong, first in the regional channel, and once the world channel opened, he became first worldwide, wondering when they will open the universe channel. You mean fight with aliens? No wait, on this planet, we are the aliens, OMG, I want to catch a local girl and study her body structure. Guys, some kid in the channel is cursing Fang Hao, anyone free to come help me curse him back? What's his name? Send it, I'm bored anyway. Juji Haruki, here's the link, don't mess it up. Received. 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 Everyone on the same channel as Fang Hao knew that Fang Hao was formidable. They only knew he was better than them, but there was no specific standard to measure how formidable he was. Now, the World Channel was opened. As all the stats were displayed, people on the regional channels realized just how terrifying Fang Hao was. He directly topped the world rankings. He dominated over transmigrators from all countries, unmatched by anyone. Some felt proud and elated because they were in the same region as Fang Hao. After all, being from the same region and country naturally bonded them. And those who secretly wanted to compete with Fang Hao now dismissed the idea. They even felt relieved that they hadn't been foolish enough to trouble Fang Hao. Otherwise, they feared they would have been facing a dead end. Fang Hao glanced at the regional channel before switching to the territory channel. The discussion here was even more intense than in the regional channel. After all, there was no restriction on speaking in the territory channel, you could say whatever you wanted. Boss Fang Hao is mighty, number one in the world, I feel like crying. Humph, you're just knowing? I dreamt of my grandma last night, told me something big was going to happen today, look, it really did. Your granny knows so much, even dragging dreams over here. Big Boss Fang Hao is mighty, the best in the world. Boss is awesome, magical powers are boundless. We're from the number one territory now, we'll have respect wherever we go. Inside the territory channel, messages were rolling continuously. All the members were more excited than Fang Hao himself. Fang Hao didn't reply to anything. Perhaps, having secured the first place, boosting everyone's morale was a good thing. For now, I'll just quietly make progress. Don't want to expose too much. Closing the leaderboard, he continued to open the world trade window. Now Fang Hao could sell his goods to everyone in the world channel, not limited to the regional channel any longer. Fang Hao casually opened an item listed by a player from the world channel. Iron Axe, exchange conditions, 5 iron, or equivalent materials, dot. Dark Iron Scimitar, green, exchange conditions, 20 iron, or equivalent items, dot. Thick Camel Horse Saddle, green, exchange conditions, 70 pieces of leather, or equivalent items, dot. Sandy Fruit Seeds, 100 seeds. Fang Hao took a brief look, the Lord's territory must be in the desert. All sorts of items, all related to sandy areas. Fang Hao then continued to open a few more World Channel Lords showcasing their items. Based on the Iron Axe, the exchange condition was 4 blocks of iron. This price was reasonable, as the cost of making it was 2 blocks of iron and 2 wood. Selling it, eliminating the need for wood, the iron's exchange price naturally must be 4 blocks. The prices of other items were similar, all were based on the cost of raw materials, adding some profit. After browsing around, Fang Hao did not find any items that he needed. So he closed other people's shops and began to set up items in his own shop on the World Channel. Initially, Fang Hao thought about marking up the prices a bit for the World Channel sales, as there was a big potential for conflicts in the future. But he thought carefully, if the World Channel's prices were higher than those on the regional channel, a large part of the people from the regional channel might act as middlemen, engaging in equipment arbitrage. So he decided to keep the prices the same on both sides. Some special equipment and items, it's simply better not purchased on the World Channel. After planning, he began to list items one by one. Being known as number one in the world, he certainly didn't lack publicity. Once the shop opened, even if people didn't buy anything, they would still want to see what the number one in the world was selling. Just as he started listing items, one by one, the items began to sell. The speed was much faster than in the regional channel. Fang Hao was also quite pleased. The level of activity far exceeded his expectations. Chapter 835. The speed at which items were being listed for sale was astoundingly fast. After 1,000 green weapons went on sale, they started to disappear at a rate visible to the naked eye. While he was still busy listing items, a notification popped up, "Your Black Iron Knight Sword has been sold out." What's going on? Did I set the wrong price? Fang Hao rechecked the exchange catalog. Black Iron Knight Sword has been sold, obtained plus 5 iron ingots. Black iron knight sword has been sold, obtained plus 5 iron ingots. Fine single-edged blade has been sold, obtained plus 15 iron. Hardwood cavalry bow has been sold, obtained plus 10 iron ingots. After a quick review, there were no mistakes in the sale amounts. Whether it was the black iron knight sword or the fine single-edged blade, they were all equipment Fang Hao had used in the early stages. In the regional channel, most lords' soldiers were equipped with this kind of gear. Unexpectedly, other regions were also about at the same stage of development as his own. Such green gear was still selling so well. The cost of a black iron knight sword was 3 iron ingots, 1 tough wood, and 1 leather. Fang Hao's selling price was 5 iron ingots, factoring in the production costs and excluding the tough wood and leather, the price was actually quite fair. After all, you can't expect a seller to not make any profit, right? Other people's prices for the same equipment, unless it was a green single-handed sword being phased out, were never lower than Fang Hao's for new equipment. Furthermore, he was selling in large quantities. Assured that he was making a profit without loss, Fang Hao continued to list weapons and equipment on a large scale. He went from listing 1,000 items in one go to 5,000, and then directly to 10,000. Items that previously did not sell well, or even stagnated in sales, suddenly began to sell like hotcakes again. The items in the warehouse began to disappear rapidly, turning back into piles of materials. Fang Hao immediately called for a large number of skeletons. He started to organize the warehouse. All kinds of assorted goods that were piled together were sorted and categorized before being stored back in the warehouse. A smile hung on Fang Hao's face. The world channel wasn't as bad as he initially imagined, was it? The transmigrators from all over were still very enthusiastic, they were all his beloved customers. Meanwhile, in a carriage heading towards the eastern cities of the 100 Cities Federation, Saint Suhaid stared blankly at the data on the leaderboard. Fang Hao's military strength was listed as 30 million. How could that be possible? In that moment, he began to doubt his own judgment again. If the numbers on the statistics were true, where exactly was his army? Given the time since the transmigrators had arrived, how could it be possible to support such a large military force? Only the undead, who do not eat or drink, could ensure the survival of so many soldiers. He started to recall his experience in Pruel City, the constant targeted actions of the orcs, and the persistent inability to locate Fang Hao's city. A feeling of being led by the nose began to rise in his heart. Bang! With a direct punch, he struck the carriage wall beside him. Saint, is there something wrong? Outside the carriage, the accompanying knights of the Hall of Justice approached and asked softly. The curtain was drawn open, and Suhaid looked at the troops moving swiftly outside. The Hall of Justice and the church had already turned their attention to the great cemetery of Odis. At the same time, because he was one of the first to scout the preparation of the cemetery, the church's higher-ups had placed even more importance on him. The support and resources had also increased 2- or 3-fold. Now, he couldn't even share his suspicions. To say now that he should continue to investigate north of Pruel City, where there had never been any clues. The higher-ups in the church would certainly deal with him. This wasn't a game of house, every decision of the church involved manpower and wealth. They wouldn't allow him to test the waters back and forth repeatedly. Looking at the inquiring eyes of the Knight of the Hall of Justice, Suhaid could only force a smile. Nothing's wrong, it's just stuffy inside the carriage, needed some fresh air. Right, remember to close the curtain later, Saint, to avoid being spied on by the enemy from afar. Understood. The knight nodded and called for several attendants. They followed on both sides of the carriage to ensure Suhaid's safety. Silverwing City, Mage Guild. Li Rong sat among a group of 11 or 12-year-old children, standing out somewhat. As an apprentice, she was clearly too old. But the uniqueness of being a transmigrator had set her on this path, and she had already become an apprentice mage. A fire elemental mage apprentice, no less. The main reason for picking the fire elemental, instead of the more common water or wood elemental among females, was the convenience of lighting her cigarettes. Here, finding a source of fire was not something you could do any time you wanted. Suddenly, a prompt for the opening of the world channel reached her ears, causing Li Rong to pause. Taking advantage of the mage's inattentiveness on the podium, she picked up the Book of City Lord and began to read. Upon seeing the conversations of everyone and the numbers on the leaderboard, Li Rong's eyes widened in amazement, her face filled with surprise. She had still underestimated Fang Hao. underestimated his capability, his wealth, and his military strength. 30 million, that's insane. But soon, her surprise was replaced by joy. She had an eye for talent. After all, she had reached out to Fang Hao and later became a subsidiary city. She hadn't made the wrong choice in coming here, it was the most correct step she had taken since crossing over. Now, it was just a matter of seeing how she could win over this man. Considering all those bunny maids in his territory, he should be fond of women, so why wasn't he taking the bait with her? Chapter 836. I really need to think of a solution. As the thought crossed her mind, the mage instructing the class turned his gaze upon her. Li Rong, what are you smiling about? The sudden call-out made Li Rong's body tremble. She immediately closed the Book of City Lord and straightened her back. Teacher Grigor, I wasn't smiling at anything. Good, come up here and help me demonstrate the casting of magic to everyone, he said. Ah! Li Rong's face fell, but she still went forth and donned the protective gear. Soon, the teaching session was over. Li Rong was eager to leave and congratulate Fang Hao as soon as she removed the protective gear. But just as she had packed her belongings, Grigor stopped her. Li Rong, stay for a moment, please. No way. I didn't mean to laugh. Li Rong complained inwardly. At over 30 years old, being scolded by a teacher among a bunch of kids, how embarrassing. Teacher Grigor. Even though a shared class doesn't mean a mentor-apprentice relationship. Yet, calling someone teacher can still bridge a connection between two people. Grigor cracked a smile. You've been here for 2 months, how's your learning coming along? Li Rong immediately replied, I can skillfully cast fireball, flame arrow, and summon flame spiders. Oh? You've progressed that quickly. Grigor was genuinely surprised at this point. She hadn't expected Li Rong to improve so rapidly. It seems transmigrators really do have many differences. Li Rong just smiled, without offering an answer. Grigor did not dwell on the matter and got straight to the point. The Hall of Justice has requested that the Mage Association dispatch members to assist at the eastern border. I intend for you to be among those sent. Li Rong felt a surge of emotion. The east is the border with the great cemetery of Odis, and it was she who had conveyed this information to Su Haid through Cao Genzi. Now, how had it come to involve her? Teacher Grigor, but I am still an apprentice. I won't be of any help if I go, she argued. Grigor shook her head and said, Transmigrators have many abilities, of which I am well aware. The association will not send you without reward, and besides, there hasn't been any actual combat. Both sides are in a state of standoff and negotiation. The reason that Li Rong was added to the departing group was influenced by the church. In recent times, Saint Su Haid of the church had become an important figure among the younger generation of Silver Wing City. Moreover, the various abilities of transmigrators had also received attention from the higher-ups. The Mage Association's transmigrator was none other than the newly joined Li Rong. Grigor wanted to cultivate her to be the association's version of Su Haid. Even if she wasn't as outstanding as Su Haid, she should not be far behind. Li Rong frowned. What reward? She wasn't overly concerned about that. With a supportive figure like Fang Hao, she had more than enough advantages. Why would she care about a few trivial rewards? And besides, the situation was dangerous even without open conflict. If anything happened, she might not be able to make it back. But Li Rong was aware that she couldn't outright reject the head of the association. She hesitated, then spoke, Teacher Grigor, I need to discuss this matter with my husband as it's not a trivial decision. Fine. The association's mage team will set out with the army in 3 days. Have a good talk with your husband, Grigor said with a smile. Li Rong nodded and turned to leave. Within the main city. After a morning's work, Fang Hao finally managed to set up the shop on the World Channel. It makes him wonder if the other regions are still living primitively. Why even the listed iron wood cutting axes and iron pickaxes outdated gathering tools are selling so well. The gathering tools he himself uses have already been upgraded to blue quality. And all sorts of green quality weapons, armors, and his own inscribed magic scrolls. In the market, they're selling like hotcakes. He's even beginning to consider whether he should change his development plan. What's the point in fighting wars, with all the trouble and effort? Simply by selling goods, he could accumulate a large sum of money, and then bit by bit, could expand his territory with capital investment. Might that not be better? He quickly dismissed this plan again. In this world, making money doesn't mean it's yours. If you're rich, it's not just about whether you beat others, they will come to beat you too, and the outcome is the same. It all comes down to who makes the first move. Fang Hao returned to the Lord's Hall. In the backyard, the maids were still busy studying how to plant flowers and plants. A few deer, which had been left alone all winter, were also meddling with tools nearby. Occasionally, they offered some opinions and suggestions. Fang Hao glanced at them but didn't pay attention to the chattering maids. He had just sat down when a system alert chimed in Fang Hao's ears alone. "Congratulations, my lord, for ranking first on the domain leaderboard. Rewards issued, influence in all factions plus 200, influence in your affiliated faction plus 300, 1 orange special building blueprint. Congratulations, my lord, for ranking first on the wealth leaderboard. Rewards issued, influence in all factions plus 100, influence in your affiliated faction plus 150, 1 orange crafting blueprint. Congratulations, my lord, for ranking first on the military power leaderboard. Rewards issued, influence in all factions plus 100, influence in your affiliated faction plus 150, 1 orange item." As each notification appeared, Fang Hao felt a surge of delight in his heart. He had just been inwardly cursing himself for being too ostentatious and not concealing his strength. Now, he was overjoyed. It was a good thing he hadn't been foolish enough to hide his power, or all these rewards would have gone to someone else. Likewise, the system didn't let him down this time. The rewards notifications weren't announced to everyone like the first time, only he could hear them. This way, at least others wouldn't know he had received rewards. He had to keep an eye on the other top-ranking contestants later. If he received rewards, at least the top 3 should have them too. He checked the first blueprint. Holy Spirit City, Level 15 Castle. Category, Wonder Main City. Effects, durability of all buildings plus 100%, food production plus 150%, production and mining plus 100%, recruitment and transformation speed of all troops plus 50%, public security plus 50%, fertility plus 30%, public faith plus 30%. Prerequisites, Lord's Mansion at or above level 15, city walls at level 15, and 5 other buildings in the city at level 15. Description, a palace where the gods are said to reside, blessed with many special effects. Damn! Upon seeing the effects in front of him, Fang Hao was completely dumbfounded. Food production increased by 150%. Didn't that mean he wouldn't need to buy food from outside next year, he'd be able to produce it himself? At the same time, production and mining had increased by 100%, and there were bonuses to troop conversion, public security, and reproduction. Even faith had increased by 30%. Fang Hao took a closer look at faith. Faith, the spontaneous worship and reverence of you by the people of your domain. The higher the devotion, the more they revere and love you. As Fang Hao understood it, this 30% meant that those who didn't believe in you now had a 30% base level of faith, and those who already did were further reinforced in their faith. These 30% became the foundation of faith. This was exactly the attribute he currently needed. His divinity hadn't increased to date, and the temples in the cities were all proclaiming the city lord's kindness and generosity. But the scars of war could not be erased by simple words. Aside from the 2 human cities, the others were conquered, and many lives were lost. Not something that a few words could make people forget and start to believe in you. This 30% was an excellent start. As long as the hatred in their hearts diminished, faith would gradually increase. Unfortunately, the building required the city to be at level 15 before it could be used. At the moment, the Lord's Mansion was only at level 12, and some less important buildings in the city remained at levels 7 or 8, which he hadn't specifically upgraded. It seems that upgrading building levels is still a critical direction for development this year. Everything could pause, but gathering and development must not stop. The reward of the first blueprint made Fang Hao's heart dance with joy. After filing away the blueprint, he continued to look at the second one. Small Hair Aerial Ship Blueprint, Energy Core 1, Hair Airship Hull 1, Hair Airship Deck 1, Hair Airship Tower 1, Hair Airship Sail 1. Chapter 837. Hair Airship Original Parts, Cast Iron Blocks 5, Bronze Ingots 8, Mithril 18, Metal Parts 12, Precision Parts 18, White Steel Plates 5, Glue 22, Thick Leather 8, Essence of Magic 12, Perfect Essence 8. Hair Airship Hull, Hardwood 350, Ironized Wood 220, Leather 200, Thick Leather 180, cast iron blocks 150, fine iron ingots 85, metal parts 320, precision parts 250, trace of flying 5, essence of magic 3. Hair airship deck, hardwood 220, ironized wood 180, thick leather 150, white steel plates 200, thick leather 150, metal parts 280, precision parts 200, trace of flying 3, essence of magic 1. Hair airship tower, hardwood 320, ironized wood 200, leather 180, thick leather 150, white steel plates 150, metal parts 200, precision parts 120, trace of flying 2, essence of magic 1. Hair airship sail, thick leather 120, swift eagle leather 50, linen canvas 150, spun yarn 120, precision parts 50, trace of flying 5, traces of wind 5, essence of magic 3. Description: an early goblin technology aerial ship, it is a vehicle for transporting goods between territories. As time passed, aerial ships were phased out by the teleportation array, and the blueprints were archived, with only a few decommissioned ships displayed in goblin parks and museums for exhibition. Upon seeing this reward, Fang Hao's brows first knitted together, then he understood what it was. The first reward for the territory was a main city building. And the first reward for wealth was a decommissioned goblin transport aerial ship. However, since the Trade Alliance had built the teleportation light screen, these kinds of transport aerial ships had been phased out and hadn't been sold externally. Though deemed obsolete, the products of goblin technology were nevertheless surprisingly effective. If this aerial ship was the same kind he was thinking of, the kind that flies in the sky, then he had indeed stumbled upon a huge bargain. He wouldn't use this thing just to transport goods. During wartime, loaded with cannons on top, might it not be even more effective? Moreover, aerial units were safer in certain situations. They could attack with peace of mind. In an instant, the feeling of elation in Fang Hao's heart was almost bursting. Being first is great, first. Thank you, system, long live the system. Fang Hao expressed his thanks to the system several times in his heart. Then he observed the aerial ship's construction requirements again carefully. In the materials, the energy core was mentioned again. He needed to figure out a way to get the blueprint for producing energy cores as soon as possible, otherwise, several of the blueprints he had couldn't be mass-produced. Neither could this aerial ship be mass-produced. Apart from the energy core, the parts of the aerial ship required a large number of precious materials. The trace of flying and essence of magic were consumed the most. Next were the traces of wind, perfect essence, and a special leather material called swift eagle leather. It must be a secondary synthetic material. Now that the world market had emerged, these materials should not be difficult to trade for. After all, with a substantial number of transmigrators around, surely someone must have obtained or found a way to get some. After viewing the second reward, Fang Hao's face was already full of smiles. Especially the name of the aerial ship, Hare. He liked rabbits, especially the clingy ones. He collected the blueprint and continued to look at the third type. Viscera jar, orange. Category, magic container. Ability, magic empowerment. Magic empowerment, magic usage is reduced by 50% and 25% is recovered upon hitting a target. Description: the power of magic allows undead mages to incorporate a portion of energy into their spells, reducing magic consumption. Looking at the third reward, Fang Hao's smile gradually faded. This was a viscera jar tailored for undead mages. Able to hit the enemy, it could reduce the magic power consumption by 75%. Currently, the Mage Tower of Mages was not yet enhanced with viscera jars, which was something he needed. And a 75% increase was quite substantial. Combined with the mage's own recovery, it was nearly like casting without any consumption. But compared to the first two rewards, it seemed slightly less impressive. Besides, Fang Hao adopted a strategy of overwhelming numbers, and once both sides' forces were entangled in battle, the mages and gunners wouldn't be very effective. There was no such thing as teammate protection here, the effect of a skill on enemies and allies was the same. A 75% recovery was useful in battle but still made Fang Hao feel like an orange-grade equipment award was wasted. Even if the viscera jar slot in the Mage Tower remained empty, he still wished it had been an orange-grade troop-building blueprint instead. Alas! Even though he felt somewhat dissatisfied, there was no way to change it. A free reward couldn't demand too much. After collecting the blueprint, he carefully placed the viscera jar on the ground. Fang Hao opened the Book of Lords. In the World Channel trading area, he began to buy trace of flying, traces of wind, essence of magic, perfect essence, and energy cores. And Swift Eagle leather was added to the list of green leather armor he was selling, with a trade condition of 10 units of Swift Eagle leather. The grade of this material was not yet clear. He decided to start with an asking price of 10 pieces to test the market, adjusting downward if necessary. After setting up with the Book of Lords, Fang Hao picked up the viscera jar and walked out of the Lord's mansion. Entering the Viscera Museum, a cold chill struck him. Chapter 838. This feeling was even more unsettling than the weather outside. A funeral priest who was processing medicine immediately came over. "My lord." Fang Hao handed the viscera jar to him, saying, "Place this on the construction site of the Mage Tower." "Yes, my lord." The funeral priest took it and turned to walk inside. Fang Hao glanced at the second floor. The door of a room on the second floor was open, yet Nelson was nowhere to be seen. In these past 2 months, Nelson had completed the creation of 5 hero corpses. 2 of which were orange heroes of the dwarven kind, and the other 3 were blue and green heroes. These 5 heroes had been assigned by Fang Hao to 8 Peaks Mountain, Bloody Mountain Range, and Frostwind Mountain Range. They were in charge of guarding the subsidiary cities and deterring any possible issues. When the funeral priest placed the viscera jar into the recess of the Mage Tower, an orange halo radiated from the center of the Viscera Museum, spreading outward. It augmented the abilities of all the undead mages within the territory. Fang Hao checked the attributes of the Viscera Museum. Viscera Museum. Category: Special Building. Viscera jars collected. Revival lightning speed killing proficiency power of thunder magic empowerment. Recruits available: Funeral Priests. Funeral Priests, Wriggling Spine 1, Death Trace 1. Note: storing various energies inside the viscera jars enables the troops to possess powerful abilities and create special weapons. The entire Viscera Museum now had 5 viscera jars. Among them, Power of Thunder was dark gold, Magic Empowerment and Killing Proficiency were orange. Lightning Speed was purple, while the initially stored Revival was slightly lower in quality, being blue. However, the effect shown by Revival was quite suitable for the undead. Through combat, they could recover from their injuries. If it could reach the orange level of Revival, the effect would certainly be better. Fang Hao waved to the funeral priest and left the Viscera Museum. It was too eerie here, and without good reason, he really did not wish to linger. He had just stepped out of the Viscera Museum, when he spotted 2 young deer carrying little bags, bounding forward while they sowed something along the roadside. "Adis, what are you planting?" Fang Hao called out. Hearing Fang Hao shout, Adis and the other young deer stiffened. They turned their heads and thought about running. Perhaps feeling it was improper to run away, they instead approached with their heads bowed and steps small. "Master," Adis said softly, like a child who had done something wrong. Fang Hao touched his own face. Was he really that scary? "What are you planting?" "Moonflower grass, Ira told us to plant some," Adis immediately explained. "Moonflower grass?" It sounded familiar. "You plant grass for what? Can't you find that stuff anywhere?" Adis immediately explained, "Master, although it's called grass, moonflower grass is actually a type of flower. It only blooms at night, and when the flowers open, they emit a beautiful glow. They can be planted in places where streetlights don't reach to provide some faint illumination." Oh, Fang Hao understood now. Nightstones were few, and streetlights covered only residential areas and the undead industrial zones. The rest of the places were still dark. If they had this moonflower grass, even if the light was faint, it could still provide some illumination. It would be good to plant some along the road. "All right, go ahead with the planting," Fang Hao nodded and said. "Yes, master." Adis waved to the other young deer hiding behind a distant building. Then returned to the roadside to plant the moonflower grass. Returning to the Lord's stone castle, Fang Hao stood at the entrance, looking up at the towering building. Level 12 Lord's Stone Castle. Level 12, just 3 more to go, Fang Hao murmured softly. 3 rewards, the viscera jar could be used directly. The other 2 were impressive looking but temporarily unusable items. It seemed he needed to intensify his collection efforts. Otherwise, the blueprints could only be viewed, not used, which was quite frustrating. Thinking of this, Fang Hao called over Dmitrija and activated the teleportation screen to head to the Bloody Mountains. Continue to recruit more miners. Build more large-scale quarries to increase mining output. Afternoon. The screen lit up in the main city's square. Fang Hao and Dmitrija emerged from the screen. After eating lunch. In the Book of Lords, Fang Hao received a private chat from Li Rong. Not bad, world's number one, indeed the man I have my eye on. Fang Hao replied, Big sister, isn't your adolescence a bit out of place at your age? You're the big sister, your whole family are big sisters. Helpless / Li Rong continued, the Mage Association wants me to accompany the Silver Wing City Army and confront the undead army of Odis to the east. Inside the hall, Fang Hao's hand, which was about to sip tea, paused slightly. He also frowned. He knew that Li Rong had become an apprentice at the Mage Association, and he had even given her the magic book of the multi-headed fire python ode. But still, Li Rong was just an apprentice. Participating in a war seemed a bit premature. They're sending you? Are you just going there to be cannon fodder? Fang Hao replied. Yes, but the president personally told me today. I didn't outright refuse, just said I'd go home and discuss it with my husband. He didn't catch the nuance in her words. Fang Hao thought seriously for a moment. Actually, Li Rong going there could be beneficial. It seemed that the Mage Association was starting to take transmigrators seriously, and Li Rong was the first transmigrator they intended to cultivate. This also meant that Li Rong had a chance to hold a significant position. Just like Su Hade's status as a saint, conjuring a mage woman or something wouldn't be bad. Moreover, afterward, she could also monitor the situation on the eastern border. And keep him informed with the intelligence. Come wartime, they could also coordinate based on the situation. All these were advantageous for him. The only concern was safety. Seeing that Fang Hao had not spoken for a while, Li Rong sent a message, What are you doing, did you fall asleep? Fang Hao replied, I was just thinking, going to the east under safe conditions could be of great help to us, at least it could keep us informed about the situation there. Big cry / Are you trying to kill your wife for insurance money? Fool you, ensuring safety won't be an issue, moreover, the current weather isn't as harsh as in winter. You could consider it, Fang Hao said. This was his thought, but if Li Rong was really averse to it and didn't intend to go, he wouldn't force her. The other side maintained silence for a while, then after 2 or 3 minutes, Li Rong's message came through again, if you ensure my safety, I can go. No problem, I'll arrange a hero to protect you. If there's real danger, I'll teleport you back, he said. All right, I agree. I'll be back in the city in half an hour. Fetch me then, I'll need to talk to the factory and the shops. Okay, no problem. Half an hour later, Li Rong emerged from the screen. Different from her previous leather armor, now Li Rong wore a form-fitting mage robe. With flames embroidered on the cuffs and hem, symbolizing her identity as a fire elemental mage. She indeed looked every bit the aloof female mage. Li Rong looked around, saw Fang Hao, and a purple-skinned woman. She frowned. Her attention bypassed Fang Hao and she began to scrutinize the woman intently. Small face, delicate features. Long black hair, pointed ears. Wearing leather armor, a dagger with a strange design hung at her waist. So beautiful. No wonder no matter how she flirted, Fang Hao never took the bait. The quality of the women around him was so high. Especially one with purple skin, wonder if it's specially painted or something. Sit down. Fang Hao motioned. Without saying much, Li Rong quietly sat down. Fang Hao continued, This is Li Rong, city lord of a subsidiary city of our territory, managing the Fairy Dream Tower. Then he said to Li Rong, This is one of our territory's heroes, Morse. The two nodded to each other, acknowledging the introduction. Chapter 839. Fang Hao continued, Morse, this time when you accompany Li Rong to the border city of the Federation, you have no other task but to ensure her safety. Even if it means running away with her if there's danger. This was the bodyguard Fang Hao had arranged for Li Rong. It was also Morse's first assignment. Since coming to the territory, Morse had not yet been given any tasks. This would be his first. Upon hearing Fang Hao's words, Li Rong's eyes immediately sparkled with joy. She could see the hero class and name, and a purple hero was something that had not appeared in the regional channel. Not to mention assassinating someone, protecting her should be enough. Plus, she wasn't an important figure, so enemies wouldn't specifically come to assassinate her. As a former spy, she should be able to avoid danger by being cautious. Her gaze joyfully turned to Morse, filled with anticipation. Morse nodded expressionlessly, okay. Wow, so cool and detached. Great, then you stay with Li Rong for now, get to know each other, Fang Hao said, then got up directly, Li Rong, let's go check out a few shops. Okay. Li Rong nodded. Fang Hao released teleportation again, and the three of them stepped into the teleportation space. He went over instructions for the city's shops again. Night. After sending Li Rong off, Fang Hao went to the backyard to soak in the hot spring. Nighttime entertainment options here were really sparse. Besides soaking in hot springs, it was just sleep. While enjoying a massage from Little White, Fang Hao opened the Book of Lords to browse. In the regional channel, it was mostly recruiting messages from various alliances and courting advertisements from men and women. After all, a region is still within a certain range. Maybe your online love interest could actually come over. But in the World channel, it was different. No matter how good the chat was, you couldn't see or touch the other person. He glanced at the regional channel. Then quickly switched to the World channel. The speed of messages was still incredibly fast. He slowed down to see what everyone was talking about. Selling giant spine crocodile scale armor, blue, high-level blue armor. Only 3 pieces for sale, highest bidder wins. Buying 2,000 units of terracotta, who has terracotta? Buying terracotta. Selling large fishing boat, blue, and various types of seafood, available in large quantities. If interested, private message me to negotiate a price. Fang Hao scrolling paused slightly. He opened the detailed information of the person. Koji Sakai. Japanese? The format of the name was easy to recognize. Fang Hao thought for a moment, then closed the chat. He planned to open hot pot restaurants in various subsidiary cities, and the supply of seafood could not rely solely on Fulé. So he wanted to choose a supplier. But seeing that kind of name, he thought it better to drop the idea. There was no rush to open a restaurant anyway. The chat was still rapidly updating. Various messages of selling and buying kept appearing. Finally, Fang Hao saw the information he needed. Selling, Swift Eagle leather, the world's first leather sought after by Fang Hao, 1 piece of green equipment for 2 pieces of leather, only 10 left, hurry if you want to buy. 2 pieces of leather for 1 piece of green equipment. Wow, they really dared to ask for that much. And they were using him as a slogan, as if his buying this leather in the channel had convinced them it was a special material. Fang Hao opened a private chat and found Zhang Bin. He said, Zhang Bin, talk to this guy and see if you can find out how this leather is made. Zhang Bin quickly replied, sure thing, boss. Fang Hao continued scrolling for a while. Soon, Zhang Bin sent a message, boss, aside from the person you mentioned, I asked another person. The 2 of them said they got the leather from a tier 5 fire feather eagle and a tier 6 fiery giant eagle, which they processed a second time to make swift eagle leather. I think it should be made from high-level hawk or eagle leather after a secondary processing. After finishing, Zhang Bin sent over 5 pieces of swift eagle leather. It seemed he had bought them while gathering information. If you don't buy, the other party might not tell you so much. Okay, got it. Fang Hao traded for the 5 pieces of leather and sent a reply. So it was leather from hawks or eagles that underwent a secondary processing. With this, Fang Hao now had a clear target. He ended the chat with Zhang Bin. Fang Hao then bought 2 blueprints in the channel. Advanced Spirit Field, blue, and Sturdy Top Well, green. The blue Spirit Field blueprint could increase crop yield, while the Sturdy Top Well could prevent well water pollution, ensuring the water's clarity and purity. Even though he had the rejuvenation spring, the well was still in use. Now with the Sturdy Top Well, he could also replace the plain white wells. After sharing the 2 blueprints with his city lords, he scrolled through the World channel a bit more, but, finding nothing else he needed, he went back to the room with Ira and Little White to rest. Ah! He had worked diligently through the whole winter. How come there was no change in those 2? The next day, Fang Hao woke from his sleep. Gently touching the softness beside him, he stretched and rolled out of bed. His feet had just touched the floor, when the Book of Lords made a crisp sound. Someone spying on me? How timely! He opened the Book of Lords to see. It was Cao Junming, the one in the dwarf city who had taken the revolver blueprint, aiming to develop the revolver. Chapter 840. In Dong Jiao's and other transmigrators' mouths, their appraisal of him wasn't high. But this man seemingly really had some talent. At least the bolt-action rifle was something he helped the dwarves improve upon. Could it be that the revolver was made? On second thought, since winter had passed, it was about time. Opening the private chat, however, left Fang Hao somewhat disappointed. Fang Hao, big bro, Lord Belerga hopes you can find the time to come over for a trip, there's something important he wants to discuss with you. Belerga was looking for him? Having a transmigrator around really did make things easier. Not even the sound transmitting shell could offer this convenience. Sure, tell him to wait a moment, I'll head over immediately. Okay. After ending the private chat with the other person, his back was gently embraced by a soft body. Master, why did you get up so early? Don't you ever feel tired? Ira said gently. Fang Hao patted her head. You all can sleep a bit longer, no need to get up this early. Ira didn't say much but instead kneeled up and began helping him get dressed. After breakfast, having called for Dimitrija, Fang Hao activated the transportation light screen and headed to Grey Iron City. He appeared in a hall that had a modern style yet was exceptionally luxurious. He found that Belerga and a group of dwarf ministers were all gathered in the hall. It didn't seem like a meeting. They likely knew Fang Hao would appear here and were waiting for him. "Milord," Belerga saluted. "Milord." The group of dwarves simultaneously saluted. Fang Hao waved his hand, indicating that everyone could rise, and then sat down to one side. There weren't many dwarves present. But there were still over 20 people, likely all confidants Belerga had promoted. Once everyone was seated, attendants brought over roasted tea that suited the dwarves' taste. Seeing that everyone had taken their seats, Fang Hao also asked, "Belerga, what's the important matter?" Belerga spoke softly, "Milord, the Human Federation sent a message yesterday regarding the situation at the Great Cemetery of Odis, hoping that the dwarves could provide reinforcements and planning to purchase a certain amount of armaments." Fang Hao's brows furrowed instantly. Were the undead and humans already on the brink of war? They had even started to ask the dwarves for help. "How did the Federation communicate with you?" Belerga organized his words and said, "The dwarves and Human Federation maintain contact through the sound transmitting shell. They mentioned that the situation with the Great Cemetery of Odis is increasingly dire, several negotiations have failed, so they want the dwarves to be prepared in advance to jointly resist the undead, and they have also placed orders for 5,000 cannons as well as tens of thousands of crossbow equipment." Fang Hao fell into thought. Several rounds of negotiations had failed, it seemed like they truly were on the verge of war. "Belerga, according to dwarf tradition, after receiving a message from humans, how would you handle it?" Belerga said, "Milord, humans and dwarves have a mutual agreement to provide aid to each other against the Blood Clan and the undead. But peace has lasted for several decades, it's a matter of whether or not to maintain this agreement. What about the armaments they want to buy? In recent years, dwarves have ceased selling new type armaments externally. Humans buying now could be to cope with the undead, or it might also be an excuse to update a new batch of firearms," analyzed Belerga. "Belerga, now that you are in charge of 8 Peaks Mountain, what do you think?" Fang Hao continued to ask. Given Belerga's fluent responses, it was clear he and his subordinates had already discussed the matter thoroughly in advance. Fang Hao also wanted to hear his opinion. Belerga didn't hide anything and directly said, "Milord, I think we can sell the armaments to them. It's a considerable income, but regarding the support of troops, Grey Iron City just ended a big battle and there's no spare manpower to help the humans at this moment." Fang Hao agreed in his heart after listening. Grey Iron City had just been through a great battle with the undead, indeed, there was an excuse to refuse sending troops. The armaments and equipment could be sold to them, to boost the human side's combat power and in turn deplete the Great Cemetery's forces. Didn't they purchase rifles? No, the Human Federation is not very accustomed to muskets, and perhaps they haven't received news about rifles yet. Well then, proceed as per your plan. Yes, milord, Belerga nodded and looked back down at the group of dwarf ministers. You all heard the milord's words, go prepare now. Yes. The group of dwarves filed out one after another. What followed? Belerga reported the recent situation in Grey Iron City to Fang Hao. All the mines had resumed extraction and the smelt areas within the city, as well as various workshops, had also resumed production. The dwarves returned to their posts and gradually returned to their everyday lives. This was something Belerga had handled quite well. He had some prestige among the dwarves and was able to stabilize their emotions. There were no large-scale disturbances. After Belerga finished his report, Fang Hao stood up and said, "Let's go, head to the warehouse. I'll directly manufacture the armaments, making it easier for you to sell them together to the Federation." "Thank you, my lord, this is wonderful." "Sure, let's go." They left the royal palace and went straight to the armaments warehouse. Fang Hao opened the Book of Lords and started making 5,000 cannons and the corresponding number of crossbows, as well as the projectiles and crossbow bolts. They appeared instantly. A large number of dwarves were called over to begin sorting through the warehouse full of armaments. "Let's go take a look at the research institute." "My lord, this way, please." Noon. Jinmasta City. As winter left and spring arrived, the number of residents entering and leaving through the city gates was starting to increase. Chapter 841. Villagers from nearby villages also brought their own goods to exchange for merchandise in the city. The most up-to-date novellas are published on Fruitnoelo. North City Gate. The city gate guards, faced with the enormous golden lion before them, were breaking out in a cold sweat. They clutched their weapons tightly, fearing any dangerous situation that might unfold. "Miss, your mount cannot enter," said the guard. Lan Yang stroked the lion's neck and glared, "Why not, when they can bring in carriages? Why can't mine enter?" The golden lion also bared its sharp teeth, expressing its dissatisfaction. Taking a step back, the guard said, "There's a rule in the city, apart from horses, any mounts or pets deemed dangerous are not allowed inside. There's a public stable over there where you can leave it for the time being." Lan Yang glanced at the stable and then at the goods on her carriage. In the end, she nodded, "All right, go and leave the mounts there." "Yes, my lord," came the reply. A group of subordinates took various mounts to the stable. Only 2 horses were left to pull the carriage. After the mounts were stored away, Lan Yang, hands on her hips, led her people into the city. They arrived at an empty stall. All the goods were displayed on it. These were spoils of war she had obtained from attacking various mountain strongholds in winter. She had no use for them herself, and they were difficult to sell in her own channel. Now that the weather was warming, she brought them to the city to sell. She also planned to buy some seeds to cultivate crops upon her return. With the goods all laid out, Lan Yang began to shout loudly to attract customers. Soon, a crowd gathered in front of the stall, inquiring about prices. Her stall was the busiest in the entire market. "My lord, you are truly formidable," a soldier flattered her from the side. Lan Yang's face was gleeful as she pinched her somewhat dry throat and said, "If I let the ball of fur and mighty bear come in and perform a couple of stunts, it would be even livelier." Yes, of course," the soldiers smiled awkwardly. Just as the stall was bustling and business was booming, a group of people approached with a menacing air. Hey! Who let you set up a stall here?" The crowd around the stall was pushed aside as 6 robust men elbowed their way in, shouting loudly. The sheer aggression of their approach scared many of the shoppers away. Nobody wanted to get into trouble. "Is there a problem?" Lan Yang stepped forward. "Humph! A problem? Have you paid the management fee, the stall fee?" Lan Yang's brows furrowed. Management fee? Stall fee? She had been to Jinmasta before and had never heard of such fees. And these terms, they sounded like modern concepts, didn't they? This era was different from the modern one. Most of those coming to the city to sell goods were farmers from nearby villages. They couldn't bring anything of much value. Some wanted to trade a couple of beast skins or wild chickens in exchange for tools, others brought vegetables to exchange for salt. That's how they traded. Who had money to pay all those fees? Since when are there such fees? You aren't just thugs, are you? Thugs, my ass, the leading man cursed, then turned to his comrades and said, "They're setting up illegally, confiscate all their stuff." At that, the men moved to take everything from the stall. "Who dares?" Lan Yang shouted angrily. "Oh, look, they've turned the skies upside down. In this city, you dare make trouble." The men were not the least bit intimidated. At that moment, a deep voice came from behind them. "What's going on?" Everyone looked to see a bulky man with a face full of scars, dressed in an expensive noble's robe, standing at the back of the crowd. Instantly, the men's eyes lit up, and their fierce gaze turned to fawning. "Boss, these people are selling without paying taxes," one of them said. However, Lan Yang's gaze met that of the man's. In each other's eyes flashed a look of mutual hatred. "Li Zhenhu, so you're here." Chapter 842. The man was not unfamiliar. He was none other than Zhenhu, one of the 3 leaders who had escaped from the Life-Taker camp. Back then, Fang Hao was capturing him, and Lan Yang was also looking for clues about him. Unexpectedly, they had encountered him here. Moreover, from his appearance, he seemed to be doing quite well in the city, having become the head of the city management. She had been curious earlier about who had instructed these people to pay this tax and that tax. It turned out it was indeed bandits who had switched professions. When Lan Yang fixed her gaze on Zhenhu's heart also trembled. At first sight, he had recognized Lan Yang as well. Here, they had actually met. Yesterday, when the World Channel was activated, he too had checked the World Channel at the first opportunity. He was still sending messages in the World Channel, teasing. But when he saw everyone starting to discuss Fang Hao, who was ranked first on the leaderboard, Zhenhu grew nervous. He immediately checked the leaderboard, and indeed, Fang Hao was ranked first in 3 categories. As someone who had ambushed Fang Hao before, he could not calm down at all. Everyone who had once provoked Fang Hao was dead. He had only narrowly escaped. Originally, he planned to lie low in the city for a good while. Now that he had been directly caught by Lan Yang, panic, shock and fear overwhelmed Zhenhu's heart. His gaze fleetingly touched on the Book of City Lord at Lan Yang's waist. A fierce light flashed in his eyes. "What's going on?" Zhenhu pretended to be calm and asked in a stern voice, still maintaining an air of officialdom. One of his lackeys immediately said, "Boss, they haven't paid the stall fee and the management fee." Zhenhu, with his hands behind his back, said coldly, "According to Jinmasta's latest regulations, markets and stalls within the city are to be managed and planned uniformly. Stall fees and management fees must be paid. Since you haven't paid, the goods are confiscated, and you'll come with us until the payment is completed, then you can return." No one around the stalls spoke. It seemed that this so-called latest regulation was indeed real, and others had paid as well. At the same time, more people had gathered again behind Zhenhu. Altogether, there were at least 20 or 30 people. Some faces, Lan Yang had seen before. They were Zhenhu's former bandit subordinates. All with numerous lives on their hands. It was absurd that they were now dressed in standard leather armor, appearing like those in charge of public security in the city. "Zhenhu, you're actually here," Lan Yang said through gritted teeth. Zhenhu had killed so many people, transmigrators and natives alike, hundreds in total. Now, he had even become a leader in the city, and Lan Yang almost wished she could stab him to death right there. Zhenhu ignored Lan Yang's words. Instead, he signaled his subordinates. More than 20 lackeys blocked all the exits. And Lan Yang and her people realized something was wrong. This was Jinmasta, they were trapped here and couldn't escape. Lan Yang's face turned ugly, and a heavy infantryman said in a low voice, "My lord, send the message out first, otherwise it could be dangerous." "Okay." Lan Yang stepped back 2 paces, hiding behind the guards. She opened the Book of City Lord and sent a message to Fang Hao. "Zhenhu and Jinmasta has trapped me and my people in the city." When Zhenhu saw Lan Yang opening the Book of City Lord, his face instantly changed. He wanted to have someone go up, but it wasn't quick enough. With a cold expression, he said, "Take them down. We still need to speed up the revolver's development, from what we see now, it's still too slow," Fang Hao said after hearing the report from several developers, with the table covered in blueprints. Yes, we'll try to speed it up," Cao Junming immediately responded. The dwarves beside him also nodded vigorously, seeming very afraid of Fang Hao. Fang Hao looked at the blueprints, then glanced at the developers. He straightforwardly said, "I want to see a mature sample of the revolver within a week. If it's not completed, everyone will be sent to mine." This. Perspiration began to appear on everyone's foreheads. Who wanted to mine? They definitely didn't want to go to those dark mines. Cao Junming wiped the sweat from his forehead and still spoke softly, "Lord, a week is too short. Give us 1 month, and I definitely will present a sample." "A month? The blueprint came out before winter, what have you guys been doing all this time?" This. Cao Junming didn't know how to respond. It's no wonder Fang Hao was upset. When he arrived here with Belerga, the people here had been yawning and just waking up. The blueprints Cao Junming presented had no significant changes from last time. Fang Hao suspected that they hadn't done anything at all this winter. It wasn't about developing other equipment, there had been no progress on the revolver. Showing him a blueprint and babbling a bunch of jargon as if he was a fool. Cao Junming, you have 1 week. If it's not done, you'll be the first to mine, Fang Hao said, then turned and walked away. The people behind Cao Junming went weak in the legs and collapsed on the floor. They quickly got up and started reorganizing the blueprints, sending parts to be manufactured at the factory. A week was too short, they likely couldn't even produce the parts. As Fang Hao left the research institute, he began contemplating how to increase these people's efficiency. Without a leader in the industry, these guys would slack off whenever they wanted, waking up even later than him, which wasn't a solution. Chapter 843. The World Channel opened, and lords from all over the world were competing in an equipment race. Their negligence could very well kill everyone. They needed to find someone to take charge. Someone who could set clear work objectives. Thinking this, he walked briskly outside. When he reached the central square, the Book of Lords made a notification sound. It seemed that people had been seeking him out more frequently lately. He opened it to see. It was a private message from Lan Yang. But when Fang Hao saw the content, his brow furrowed instantly. Li Zhenhu? Darn! Seeing the message from Lan Yang, Fang Hao knew something was wrong. Given Li Zhenhu's character, there was a good chance Lan Yang was in danger now. Fang Hao immediately sent a message to Lan Yang asking for details. But he received no reply. Noticing Fang Hao's grave expression, Belerga at his side also realized something had happened. He immediately asked, "My lord, is there a problem?" Fang Hao asked, "Is it possible to contact the human city of Jinmastu?" Belerga shook his head, Grey Iron City only maintains contact with Silver Wing City and cannot reach the other cities. After thinking for a moment, Fang Hao still said, "You immediately contact Silver Wing City, cancel the sale of the equipment, and tell them Jinmastu has captured a transmigrator named Lan Yang. Ensure her personal safety. To go to Jinmastu, one couldn't just teleport there directly. Even if Fang Hao rushed there now, it would take several hours. By the time he got there, the person might already be in trouble. So the first thing to ensure was that Lan Yang could survive." Hearing Fang Hao's instructions, Belerga nodded, "Understood, my lord. I will contact Silver Wing City immediately." "Good." Fang Hao nodded and then did not continue to stay. He activated the teleportation screen to return to the main city. Belerga, on the other hand, quickly headed to the royal palace to contact Silver Wing City. In Jinmastu, the marketplace. Lan Yang closed the Book of City Lord and took off the beast whip hanging from her waist. Crack! With a swing of the whip in her hand, she struck the cart in front of her. The wooden handrail of the cart instantly shattered, and splinters flew everywhere. The surrounding residents scattered, hiding in the distance to continue watching the excitement. At the same time, they whispered about the deeds of Li Zhenhu and his men lately. "What, you dare to make a move in the city? Not afraid of dying?" Li Zhenhu stepped forward from behind, waved his hand lightly, and a group of underlings surrounded a few people. Lan Yang stared at him firmly. What she wanted most was to kill Li Zhenhu. But she was well aware that Li Zhenhu had taken most of the wealth from the mountain bandit camp. And now he was dressed in noble attire, it looked like he had bought himself a title with money. In Jinmastu, she was on his turf. "Li Zhenhu, is it really just about not paying some stall tax? I'll make it up to you," Lan Yang said loudly, suppressing the rage in her heart. Although she was naturally irreverent, she was not foolish. Falling into the hands of Li Zhenhu, she was well aware of what her fate would be. Since she had discovered Li Zhenhu's whereabouts, she could settle the scores with him later. After listening to her, Li Zhenhu's face remained dark, his eyes shifting rapidly, and eventually becoming even colder as he said loudly, "She's causing trouble on the street, kill them all." Kill. Li Zhenhu's underlings, all with a background as mountain bandits, had their own combat power. Each one drew their blade from their waist, and a fierce aura instantly emanated from them. Shouting like robbers on a raid, they charged towards Lan Yang and her companions. They separated and regrouped, showing some semblance of coordinated combat. Seeing the other side had drawn their weapons, it was clear that if Lan Yang did not fight back, she could only wait to die. She gritted her teeth and said, "Try not to kill anyone. No sooner had the words left her mouth than the whip in her hand lashed out again. Crack! With a loud snap, the whip struck one of the underlings on the wrist. His face contorted in pain, his weapon fell to the ground, and a jagged wound opened on his wrist, flesh peeling back. The little brother held onto his wrist, howling loudly in pain. People never expected that, despite her petite appearance and dark complexion, the young girl wielded her whip with exceptional ferocity. More and more people began rushing forward to attack. Meanwhile, the whip in Lan Yang's hand moved faster and faster, like a black snake flicking its tongue, the tip relentlessly striking the enemy's shoulders, wrists, necks, and other unprotected areas. After each strike, those hit would hold the spot and howl loudly in pain. The force was not light. The rest of the group also surged forward, engaging in battle with the heavy sword infantry. Though Li Zhenhu's side had the advantage in numbers, most were bandits and street thugs by origin, and their combat power was certainly inferior compared to formally recruited soldiers. The two sides struggled, but the situation remained in deadlock. Kill them, quickly! Li Zhenhu urged loudly. His henchmen once again charged forward recklessly. Lan Yang lashed out with her whip again. This time, instead of striking, the whip coiled around a man like a spirit snake, pulling him in front of her. Reaching out, she grabbed a dagger in her hand and held it against the man's throat. Li Zhenhu, order your men to back off, or I will kill him and see how you continue to be the boss. Lan Yang shouted. The faces of the attackers who rushed up changed instantaneously, all looking toward Li Zhenhu. Good, very good, you little girl do have some skill, Li Zhenhu said somberly, his face filled with resentment, come back first. His subordinates, looking ragged, all retreated. They hadn't expected these people to be so fierce. Their numbers were greater, yet they were beaten into such a state. The henchman who was being held tried to resist and struggle. Lan Yang knees him from behind right in the groin, and he immediately curled up without struggling any further. Take us out of the city, Lan Yang demanded. Li Zhenhu scoffed, you won't make it out. As the standoff continued, a group of patrol guards wearing uniform armor and carrying iron swords rushed over. The captain, with a grim expression, surveyed the scene. He said coldly, dare to cause trouble in the city, do you all want to die? Li Zhenhu looked disparagingly at Li Rong, straightened his collar, and stepped forward, Captain, these people refused to pay the city lord's management fee and even wounded people on the streets with weapons. The captain frowned upon seeing Li Zhenhu, then looked at the smashed stalls and Lan Yang and the others. He ordered harshly, arrest them all, and execute any who resist on the spot. SHH. All the soldiers drew their swords in unison, and the crossbows loaded with bolts aimed from behind, also pointed at the group from afar. Seeing this, Lan Yang knew they wouldn't be able to leave the city. She signaled her people to lay down their weapons and then shouted loudly, I am the sister of the city lord of Lyss City, I demand that you ensure my safety and contact Lyss City, we will compensate you for your losses. The soldiers, who had been about to forcefully suppress these people, suddenly paused in their actions. Their gazes shifted back to the captain. Immediately, Li Zhenhu explained, Captain, they are a transmigrator group, there is no way she could be any city lord's sister. Arrest them. At this time, the market was in chaos. Forget about the stalls, the spectators had crowded around in 3 layers both inside and out. The captain gestured, take them away, lock them in the dungeon first. The dungeon for serious offenders. Lan Yang and her companions, with heavy shackles, sat on the rotten straw mats, leaning against the damp walls. The air was filled with the cold and rotten smell, even more disgusting and nauseating than when they were hiding in the cave. Sitting here, she realized her impulsiveness. Li Zhenhu might look burly and brainless, but he was extremely cunning. He was probably already plotting how to kill them off. And in this era, there was a deep-seated class system. Nobles sometimes didn't even need a trial to kill someone, these sorts of incidents wouldn't even disturb the city lord of the city. The death would be silent and unnoticed. Does Li Zhenhu want to get rid of me quickly to prevent the boss from rescuing me? Doesn't he fear the boss would kill him outright? No, he won't kill me, because the boss would still have him executed. I'm doomed, I'm afraid I won't be able to get out of here. Chapter 844. His face growing uglier by the moment, Lan Yang thought to himself. With the book of the city lord taken away, they had no means at their disposal. Just as his mind was racing. Clang! The iron door at the end of the corridor opened. The sound of footsteps approached from afar, and soon, a dungeon guard, followed by several guards, walked in. The dungeon guard pointed at Lan Yang. "You, come out." Lan Yang's expression changed, and the other heavy-sword infantrymen confined with her immediately shielded her behind them. "I am from Lyss City, think carefully about what you are doing," Lan Yang shouted loudly. The dungeon guard sneered. "Someone from Lyss City? Anyone with even a slight connection wouldn't have been sent directly here. Come out, or we wouldn't mind shooting your men dead and then dragging you out," the dungeon guard said coldly. The guards behind him immediately reached for the crossbow bolts on their backs. Lan Yang was silent for a moment, then stood up. "My lord, don't go out, it's more dangerous out there." "Yes, my lord, you can't go with them," the heavy sword infantrymen all tried to stop her. They were also frustrated, as those troublemakers clearly had no real skill, yet had backing from these people. Lan Yang looked back at them and said, "Don't be foolish, wait for someone to save us." The heavy sword infantryman fell silent. Lan Yang walked towards the front of the iron cage. The guard opened the iron cage and made way. Those who had followed him in were actually full of caution. This woman was not easy to deal with, she had taken down 4 or 5 men on the outside. Lan Yang stepped out of the iron cage and followed the men out. Jinmastu, City Lord's mansion. On the spacious bed, City Lord Izakir was expending his remaining energy on a maid. In the middle of his exertion, a series of urgent knocks suddenly came from the door. Izakir continued his oscillations as if deaf to the sound, his body slick with sweat. Finally, after letting out an angry roar, he heard the knocking at the door. He pulled up his trousers, his bulky body slipped into a leather poncho. Smack! He slapped the maid on the butt and said, "Stop playing dead, go open the door." The maid quickly rose, ran to the door, and opened it. A neatly dressed butler stood outside. Paying no heed to the strange smell wafting from the room, he stepped forward twice. "City Lord." Izakir's face was filled with displeasure. He hated being disturbed at such times, as it affected his performance. He moved his corpulent body to the side and sat down. Pouring himself a glass of fruit wine, he savored it before inquiring, "What's the matter, to rush in like this?" The old butler bowed slightly, glancing at the disheveled maid beside him. "You, go out." The maid looked at Izakir, and seeing him nod, she picked up the scattered clothes from the floor and ran out. When there were no others in the room, the butler began to speak. "Lord Izakir, Silver Wing City has just sent a message that we've captured a transmigrator, an important person, and to ensure her safety." "Caught Silver Wing City's person? Isn't that madness?" The only ones capable of passing messages from Silver Wing City across the 100 cities were a few powerful entities. The Hall of Justice and the Church, or someone associated with a big shot in the city. Although he was the ruler of Jinmastu, he was equally reluctant to provoke Silver Wing City. Izakir put down his wine glass. "Who is this transmigrator from Silver Wing City, what did she do, and has the investigation been clear?" He decided to ask for details first. As long as it wasn't too serious, he would release her immediately. Silver Wing City was busy preparing for the war with the undead, he didn't want to draw their focus toward himself. Just as the butler was about to speak, an attendant stepped into the room with urgency, reporting in a grave tone, "Lord City Lord, the Trade Alliance has sent someone, they say there's urgent business to discuss with you." Not far behind the attendant stood a goblin in a black suit. No one overlooked him due to his small stature. Because he represented the Trade Alliance, a neutral power, playing the role of merchant. Yet their influence and wealth far exceeded the Federation of 100 cities. Frowning, Izakir gestured to the butler to wait and said, "Please let the gentleman from the Trade Alliance come in." The attendant stepped aside, making a welcoming gesture. Adjusting his glasses, the goblin walked into the room with purposeful strides. After giving a slight bow, he spoke blandly, "City Lord Izakir, I come on behalf of the Trade Council requesting that you ensure the safety of one individual." Hearing this, Izakir's heart gave a sharp jolt. Who? Lan Yang, a human transmigrator, was captured today in Jinmastu City. The Trade Alliance does not intervene in the internal matters of the cities, but I ask that you ensure her personal safety until her guilt is confirmed, Lord City Lord. Izakir glanced sideways at the butler, who subtly nodded, confirming that he too was referring to the person named Lan Yang. At this moment, Izakir was even more astounded, just who was this transmigrator to have both Silverwing City and the Trade Alliance requesting her protection? He dared not offend Silverwing City, nor did he wish to provoke the Trade Alliance. The development of Jinmastu indeed relied on the channel of the Trade Alliance. Without further delay, Izakir said, "Butler, go check on this transmigrator named Lan Yang." "Yes, my lord," the butler rushed off, while Izakir told the goblin, "Sir, please wait for me in the hall for a moment, I'll get ready and then provide you with an answer." Chapter 845. The goblin nodded, "Very well, Lord Izakir." The goblin was taken away, and Izakir quickly got dressed. He also hurried towards the hall. Inside the hall, the goblin, the butler, had long been waiting. And in the middle of the hall, stood a soldier in armor. With a glance, Izakir understood the situation. He sat down and asked, "The people you've captured?" The captain hung his head low, clearly uneasy, as sweat began to appear on his forehead. "Yes, my lord, these people were setting up stalls in the city market without paying the stall fees. They got into a conflict with the new market supervisor, Li Zhenhu, and his men. I was leading the patrol team at the time, and we apprehended them," he said. Obviously, the matter had escalated, and the captain didn't dare to fabricate any lies. There were many witnesses at the time, a simple inquiry would reveal the truth, so there was no hiding it. Furthermore, both parties had drawn their weapons, and he had merely followed procedures, so none of this could be blamed on him. After hearing the report, Izakir's flesh trembled with anger. This Li Zhenhu, he remembered, had come up with the idea of charging market fees to increase revenue. He hadn't expected trouble to arise so quickly. And to cause such a commotion over a stall fee. Even involving Silverwing City and the Trade Alliance, this was absurd. Izakir pointed with his hand and immediately said, "Go and release them, if they're missing even a finger, I will bury you alive." "This." The captain's body trembled. But he didn't move his feet. "What are you standing there for? Hurry up," urged Izakir. The captain raised his pale face and stammered, "Lord City Lord, Li Zhenhu has just requested that the woman be handed over to him for punishment. I fear she has already been taken away by him." Izakir was instantly enraged and bellowed, "Then what are you waiting for? Go save her, find Li Zhenhu and save her." "Oh, right away." The captain, in a panic, scrambled out and ran off in a most disgraceful manner. The shackles clanked loudly. Lan Yang was pushed off the carriage and into a room. In the dimly lit room, Li Zhenhu sat on a chair dressed in a noble's brocade robe, legs spread wide, a picture of arrogance. One foot propped on the chair, he held a toothpick, idly cleaning his teeth. Behind Li Zhenhu stood more than 20 subordinates, most of them bearing injuries, several wrapped in bandages. They stared at Lan Yang with cold faces filled with anger and hatred. "Lord Li Zhenhu, we've brought her in," said someone from behind. Li Zhenhu waved his hand, and immediately his underlings handed some money to the guards who had escorted her. The guards happily pocketed the money and left, making sure to close the door behind them. As the door shut, the room grew even more dark and gloomy. Li Zhenhu, with great interest, sneered at Lan Yang, "How about it, Lan Yang? Did you ever imagine this day, when the identities would be reversed, and the hunter becomes the hunted?" Lan Yang's eyes blazed with rage, yet showed no fear. She had fought Li Zhenhu and his band of bandits for a long time and had once expected to be killed by them. Now, she only regretted miscalculating one step and falling into the hands of Li Zhenhu. Looking at Li Zhenhu, who was full of pleasure, she said, "How long can you keep smiling? Someone will avenge me. The only difference between us is who dies earlier or later." "Haha, spirited indeed. You really do resemble a lioness." Repressing her rage, Li Zhenhu, flicking away the toothpick, said, "You mean Fang Hao? It would take him at least half a month to get here from Lyss City, and I don't think he'd come all this way for a dead woman like you. Even if he does, what can he do to me here in Jinmastu? It's not his home. How could he possibly harm me, an official, even a minor one in charge of the market?" At that moment, he had indeed panicked when he discovered Lan Yang was sending out a message. He feared Fang Hao would come over and kill him. But now that he had calmed down and thought it through, would Fang Hao really come all this way for a dead woman like Lan Yang? Even if he spent half a month to arrive, would he have the power to kill an official like him in the city? Even if it was a purchased position in charge of only the market. Not just anyone could easily kill him. Humph! How do you know Brother Hao doesn't have the ability to teleport or something? Li Zhenhu was stunned for a moment, then the next second he burst into laughter. You're hilarious, seriously. Teleport? Do you think this is a game with teleportation rings or something? Seeing that her opponent was not intimidated, Lan Yang spoke again. Li Zhenhu, don't tell me you're afraid to take me on one-on-one. A big man like you wouldn't be scared of a woman, right? Li Zhenhu's mouth twitched, patting his chest in mock panic. He said teasingly, oh dear, I am indeed a bit scared. What if you beat me to death? Oh, you're scaring me to death. The lackeys behind him also joined in the laughter. Lan Yang's expression grew even darker, her eyes flaring with even greater murderous intent. But the more she did so, the better Li Zhenhu felt. When he was a bandit, he had seen plenty of that look, those who would have gladly eaten his flesh and drank his blood. To him, Lan Yang's look was nothing special. Oh dear! That's really frightening. Li Zhenhu looked at his lackeys. The shackles are secure, right? Boss, don't worry, they're definitely sturdy. Even if she breaks free, we can hold her down and let you have your fun without a worry, one of the lackeys said. That's good to hear. Li Zhenhu stood up, lifted the bedding to the side to reveal various weapons underneath, and took out a whip, saying, I heard you like whips, I've got some here too. It'll be real fun, don't worry, I won't let you die. We brothers will play with you until you have no strength left. Then we'll let you die of hunger and thirst. Ah, what a pity you're so dark, not really my type. Boss, if you don't like her, we do, one said. Yeah, boss, you go first. Just don't play her to death. She's whipped me a few times, I want to get even with her, another chimed in. The lackeys began to jeer. Lan Yang, looking at the various weapons hidden beneath the bedding, couldn't help but show a look of fear on her face. Death might not be scary. But the thought of being tortured endlessly, unable to seek death was truly terrifying. Going by the time. Fang Hao must have teleported to his own city after receiving the message, then headed straight here. But even so, there wasn't enough time. Just like Li Zhenhu had said, even if he arrived, would he have the power to intervene in the matters of Jinmastu? Even if Fang Hao did come to rescue her later, she would be ruined after these brutes had their way with her. With that thought, Lan Yang bit her silver teeth. She lowered her head and charged toward the wall, intending to slam her head into it and kill herself on the spot. But Li Zhenhu, who had been keeping an eye on her while speaking, intercepted her the moment she moved. He pinned her firmly to the ground. Thinking of killing yourself? It's not that simple. You can't die until you've entertained us brothers sufficiently. Li Zhenhu turned to look at his men and said, pick her up, let me have my fun first. After I'm done, it's your turn. Fuck your mother, Li Zhenhu, Lan Yang cursed loudly. Haha. I just love it when you talk like that. Li Zhenhu laughed wildly. His laughter echoed throughout the room. Just as Li Zhenhu was starting to undress. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps came from outside, as if a large group of people had rushed in. Before the people in the room could react, the door was kicked open, and a troop of armored soldiers charged straight in. Leading them was the patrol captain who had arrested Lan Yang. The captain glanced at Lan Yang, who was still fully clothed and uninjured. He let out a sigh of relief and ordered, take the prisoner away. Our latest chapters at Frihognovlo only. Li Zhenhu frowned, Captain, what's going on? We had an agreement that I would deal with this person. The captain glared at Li Zhenhu, reached into his chest, and tossed a few gold coins on the ground. If you want her, go ask the city lord himself. If you want to die, don't drag us into it. Li Zhenhu looked down at the coins on the ground, growing more astonished. Had Fang Hao arrived? No, that couldn't be. The distance was too great for him to be here, besides, with his temperament of not letting things wait until tomorrow, he would have come personally if he were involved. So, Fang Hao must have had someone else intervene in the matter. Had he actually gotten the city lord to personally order her release? Did Fang Hao wield so much power that he could influence matter in Jinmastu even when he was not present? How could that be possible? The captain cast an eye at his subordinates and said coldly, are you deaf? Escort Miss Lan Yang to the carriage, we're heading back. Chapter 846. A few people were about to leave with Lan Yang. But Li Zhenhu suddenly stood up, wait. Then, looking directly at the captain, he said, she stirred up trouble in the market and injured someone with a weapon. Can I finish my interrogation before you take her away? He knew Fang Hao had found people to protect Lan Yang. Now that she was being taken away, killing her later would obviously become impossible. He needed to find a separate opportunity to kill her to eliminate future problems. Ha, Li Zhenhu, you should go talk to the city lord then. The captain's face remained grim as he told his subordinate, take Miss Lan Yang outside. Li Zhenhu frowned, his gaze landing on the weapon under the bed, but he did not have the courage to pick it up. But he was not content to just let her leave like that. He followed the group out. Exiting the dim room. The warm sunlight restored some color to Lan Yang's face. She had been silent the whole time, just following behind the guards as they walked outside. Following the guards, they left the courtyard. Outside the gate, a carriage was parked, and next to it were the detained heavy sword infantry. Upon seeing Lan Yang, they immediately showed joy and rushed up to ask about the situation. The shackles on her were taken off. The captain said, Miss Lan Yang, here are your belongings. Please check if anything is missing. The whip, the book of City Lord, everything was there. Lan Yang nodded, nothing is missing. Good, the City Lord has prepared a feast at the City Lord's mansion, and invites you to come, the captain said with a smile. Lan Yang gathered her belongings one by one. She glanced back at Li Zhenhu and the others in the courtyard and slightly furrowed her brow. She said to the captain, well, it all happened so suddenly, my people are still outside the city waiting. Without news from me, they may cause trouble. Pausing slightly, she added, how about this, escort us out first so I can reassure my followers, then we'll come to the city lord's mansion for the feast. The captain and his men agreed. Those left outside would definitely be very anxious having waited a long time without seeing anyone. It was very possible that news had already leaked out, and they didn't want any more trouble. All right, then let's leave the city first. After Miss Lan Yang reassures her followers, we'll go to the city lord's mansion together, they decided. Good. Lan Yang smiled and nodded. Miss Lan Yang, please get into the carriage. Lan Yang quietly got into the carriage. She didn't look at Li Zhenhu outside, but she could guess he was probably feeling resentful. It's best if you don't leave, wait and see who dies. The carriage slowly started moving. Exiting this dark alley. She opened a slit in the curtain to see the carriage heading out of the city. Lan Yang then let out a heavy sigh of relief. That was a close call. Too dangerous. They reached the city gate. From a distance, they could see the station soldiers and the golden-haired lions kept near the stables. Lan Yang tapped on the carriage to have it stop. It's fine if we stop here, we can go the rest of the way on our own. Lions are wary of strangers, getting too close might cause danger, Lan Yang said. The escorting soldiers also saw the enormous lion. Hearing Lan Yang say this, they naturally did not dare to get close. All right, once Miss Lan Yang has finished explaining to her people, come back here and we will regroup, the captain said. Okay, Lan Yang replied with a smile. Then, she led her people briskly to where the rest were encamped. It felt like walking through the gates of hell. Returning to her own people truly felt like being reborn. As Lan Yang and her group arrived, the soldiers at the camp stood up. Seeing everyone a bit disheveled and even injured, they realized there were issues. My lord, what happened? Someone immediately asked. Lan Yang glanced sideways at the waiting guards in the distance. She spoke in a low voice, bring the lions and horses over. We're leaving immediately. I'll explain on the way. Yes, my lord. Everyone quickly began to act. They started getting their gear ready, and the golden-haired lions and the horses were brought over. Lan Yang took another look at the distant guards. Mounting the lion, she said, let's go, home. Rushing noises filled the air. The group mounted their horses and charged into the distance. The patrol captain left waiting in the distance was dumbfounded. What happened? They all ran off. Weren't they going to the feast? Why did they just leave? Hey! Miss Lan Yang! Miss Lan Yang! The captain shouted loudly. But the distance was too great, and they were moving away even faster, leaving him no chance to speak or retain them. Then, a horseman came up to him. He spoke softly, the captain, my lord suddenly got some urgent business. We'll talk about the feast next time. She'll visit the city lord personally then. This, but the city lord already prepared the feast, the captain hurriedly said. The horseman continued, Please also tell the city lord that there's an urgent matter and we need to return immediately. Without waiting for the captain to respond, he turned and spurred his horse, chasing after the departing group. The captain stood there, at a loss. He had already made a mistake, and now the city lord had asked him to bring the people over to mitigate the impact of this incident. But unexpectedly, they just turned and ran. What on earth had he done to deserve this? Encountering one problem after another. Only when the last person disappeared from view did the captain turn around, go back. Everyone left, driving the empty carriage away. Chapter 847. All the way at a galloping pace. Throughout the journey, there was no rest, as I headed straight back to my own city. As I entered the city gates and stopped, the horses almost collapsed from exhaustion. Their whole bodies emitted a layer of white mist as they gasped heavily. My subordinate took the reins of the horse. He immediately said, "My lord, Fang Hao is waiting for you at the city lord's mansion. Please hurry over." "All right, I know." Lan Yang didn't stop but quickly made his way to the city lord's mansion. Inside the hall, in front of the large desk, several kinds of food were laid out. Fang Hao, Dimitrija, and a woman clad in leather armor were sitting at the desk. Upon seeing the food, Lan Yang couldn't help swallowing his saliva. I hadn't felt it before, but now I suddenly felt hungry. "Boss." Lan Yang sat down directly at the table and started to eat a meat pie. Fang Hao glanced at this dark-skinned girl. Seeing she was not injured, he felt relieved. "Tell me everything in detail," Fang Hao said. Lan Yang took several big bites with his cheeks bulging, and recounted everything that had happened in the city during the day. Actually, the matter was not a big deal. For anyone else, such a management fee wouldn't have caused such a stir. But Lan Yang and Li Zhenhu had a vendetta, the kind that doesn't end until one is dead. Whenever the two met, their first thought was to kill the other. Therefore, as soon as the incident occurred, Li Zhenhu used all his means to try to kill Lan Yang first. After all, the situation between them was beyond reconciliation. After finishing the tale, Lan Yang said, "He also wants to sleep with me, boss, you have to kill him. He might run away by tomorrow." He still spoke as he ate. His mouth was muffled. "Is he in Jinmastu? Did he buy some position there, and does he have any connections?" Fang Hao continued to inquire. "It's like a city management position, and from the looks of it, the city guards don't treat him with much respect, so he probably doesn't have much of a network," Lan Yang replied. Fang Hao nodded, not pressing any further. Clearly, Lan Yang didn't know much, nor did he have a way to find out detailed information. And today's incident was also a warning to Fang Hao about the danger of Li Zhenhu. This Li Zhenhu obviously wasn't just a bandit who only knew how to rob. He had previously provided many suggestions to the bandits in the Life-Taker stronghold, helping the originally 100-membered Life-Taker stronghold to quickly grow to several thousand members. He even purchased cannons, nearly causing a big loss for the LYSS city troops. This man not only had an active mind, he was also not a miser. He knew how to spend money to his advantage. Now, he just bought a minor official position in the city. If left unchecked, the next time we meet, if he really becomes an official in some important position, it would truly not be easy to kill him. Therefore, we must kill him directly this time to avoid future trouble. Do you have a picture of Li Zhenhu?" Fang Hao smacked down Lan Yang's hand as he was reaching for more food. It was almost a mishap, and he still had the heart to stuff more into his mouth. Lan Yang rubbed the back of his hand and shook his head. "No, but his appearance is very recognizable. Once you hear about it, you can remember." Fang Hao nodded and said to the side, "Little you, I'll leave this task to you. Let Lan Yang describe his appearance and where Li Zhenhu lives, then you go and kill him." The woman sitting beside Fang Hao was none other than Disaster Song Hilda. Being a ghost hero, she was capable of hiding in the shadows and assassinating enemies. "Understood, my lord." Little Yu sat beside Lan Yang and began listening to her describe Li Zhenhu's features. After the description, Little Yu stood up. "My lord, I'll leave right now." Fang Hao nodded. "Jinmastu should have no people from the church, but still be careful. After you return, let Lan Yang inform me, and I will pick you up." "Yes, my lord." As soon as the words fell, Little Yu's figure dispersed like ink, disappearing from sight. Lan Yang's eyes widened, surprised by the scene in front of her. As night fell, Jinmastu gradually returned to peace. In a dim room, more than 20 men, either sitting or standing, silently waited. On the bed in the room, various parcels were packed up. They were ready to leave at a moment's notice. At last, the door opened, and Li Zhenhu, smelling of alcohol, pushed the door open and walked in. "Brother, how did it go? Are we still running?" The younger brother immediately surrounded him. Today, with this incident, and Lan Yang being rescued. In the afternoon, he had his men pack up all their belongings and wait in the room for his news. He then went out, first dragging the captain aside and stuffing him some money to learn some information. It was the goblin from the trade alliance who saved Lan Yang. The city lord didn't want to offend the trade alliance, so he simply let Lan Yang go. Knowing that Fang Hao had intervened through the trade alliance gave Li Zhenhu some peace of mind, at least he was not in a rush to flee anymore. As evening approached, he hosted a banquet for some of the city's dignitaries. After spending a large amount of his money, he received a promise. The city had a vacant military supply officer position, which they would introduce him to the city lord in time. This made Li Zhenhu even happier. If he were to attain this position, then he would enter into significant official ranks. Even if Fang Hao came, he could not just kill him. He might even find a way to deal with him. Chapter 848. Watching his anxious-looking brothers, Li Zhenhu smiled and said, "Go? Why go? From now on, we'll enjoy the good life right here in this city, sipping the finest drinks and savoring the spiciest dishes." "Hey? Big brother, you found a way." During the day, it had been a harrowing experience for Li Zhenhu. But now, he was sure that Fang Hao wouldn't come for a while, and as long as he became the quartermaster, even if Fang Hao was the darling of Lyss city, he wouldn't be able to touch him. Of course, this time, we've turned a misfortune into a blessing and found a new way forward. No need to leave anymore. That's great, big brother. Yeah, I do have some attachments here. You're attached to your little lover, hey. Ha ha ha. The atmosphere in the room instantly lightened, far from the oppressive mood from before. Li Zhenhu waved his hand and said, "Everyone's taken some knocks today. Take some money and go out and have some fun tonight. Make sure you all come back on time in the morning." "Got it, big brother." Everyone took their share of money, said their goodbyes, and headed out to find some fun. Outside the door, only a few brothers remained to stand guard over the place. Li Zhenhu returned to his room. He took out a nightstone and placed it on the bedside table. Under the dim light of the stone, he stared blankly at the world channel. He didn't know if he was making the right move, but things had progressed to the point where he had no other choice. Time ticked away, and the room was extraordinarily quiet. In a hazy daze, Li Zhenhu thought he saw someone standing in front of the table. Li Zhenhu was startled. His body sprung up instantly, weapon in hand. But looking closely, the spot where he'd thought he saw someone was empty again. The room was filled only with darkness, no hint of a figure to be seen. "Damn, that kid Fang Hao really has me on edge," Li Zhenhu muttered, massaging his temples. Just as he was about to lie down and rest some more, a woman's voice rang out, "So, you must be Li Zhenhu then." "What the?" Before he could speak, he felt a sharp pain in his neck. He didn't dare to move and instead asked, "Who are you?" "I'm here to kill you." "You?" Thud. The sound of flesh being pierced reverberated as a sharp blade thrust through his jaw and into his brain. Li Zhenhu's body began convulsing violently, blood flowing from all orifices. Eventually, his body went limp and he fell to the ground, lifeless. Li Zhenhu never thought that despite all his planning and contingencies, it would be so easy for Fang Hao to kill him. No need for others. "What's that noise, big brother?" Bang! The door was burst open, and two brothers who had been standing outside rushed in upon hearing the commotion. Little Yu's form melted away into the dark night like ink. The next second, she appeared behind the two brothers. Two daggers pierced through their necks. The men slowly collapsed. Little Yu dragged the two into the room and closed the door again. After rifling through the room and finding nothing of value, she took their packed belongings. Then she left, disappearing into the night. The next morning, early, Fang Hao awoke and glanced at the Book of Lords, still no message from Lan Yang. It seemed that Little Yu hadn't returned yet. But he wasn't worried. By now, Little Yu was a purple hero, and with her ability to appear and disappear at will, even if the assassination failed, there would be no risk to her life. The bigger possibility was that no one would have even noticed her presence. After washing up and dressing with the help of the maids, he felt completely integrated into this world. He accepted the maid's assistance with his clothes quite naturally. Descending the stairs, he saw the skeleton merchant Dujin, sitting calmly downstairs, waiting. Fang Hao was slightly taken aback. Ah, it seemed like the undead always liked to sit somewhere and then start contemplating life. Passing the surplus of time. Good morning, Dujin. Dujin looked up at the sound, seeing Fang Hao come down the stairs. He immediately stood up to greet him. Good morning, Lord. You needed to see me. Yes, my lord. An hour ago, Mr. Moore of the Trade Alliance sent a transmission request, said Dujin. Chapter 849. Moore was a goblin teller of the Trade Alliance. Mr. Fang Hao had entrusted the Trade Alliance yesterday to contact Jin Master to ensure Lan Yang's life. Thinking about it, he still owed them a favor. Let him come over, Mr. Fang Hao said. Yes, sir. Dujin withdrew, and when he came back, he was followed by the neatly dressed goblin Moru, carrying a briefcase. The small figure took large strides, trying hard to keep up with Dujin's pace. Upon entering the hall, he revealed a joyful smile. Mr. Fang Hao, I've missed you so much this winter. Mr. Fang Hao smiled as well. Mr. Moru, it has been a while since I've seen you too. I must thank the Trade Alliance for yesterday's help. What are you talking about? Not to mention that you are an important member of the Trade Alliance, we are also friends. It is right to help a friend. Moru jumped onto a nearby chair. Mr. Fang Hao had a maid bring some fruit wine and he asked with a smile, even as friends, thanks are still necessary. Moru opened the briefcase, took out a contract, and said, let's not talk about that for now. Last time, didn't you say you wanted to open a store at Residence 032? It's already been arranged. Here's the contract, you can start operating normally after you sign it. There are rules that you have to adhere to, make sure to read them well. Yes, okay, Mr. Fang Hao took the contract and read it carefully. The last time Moru came, Mr. Fang Hao had indeed asked him to handle the store setup. At Residence 032, a cosmetics store would be set up on the first floor, clothing on the second, and jewelry on the third. He wasn't expecting it to generate a lot of profit, but the important thing was to build recognition. Still, the store was set up a bit late. Today was the day Li Rong was leaving Silver Wing City. She wouldn't see this store. But it didn't matter, the shop's decoration and stocking could be handled by his subordinates. After reading the agreement, Mr. Fang Hao had someone bring a pen and he signed his name on it. Now, this store is mine, right? He asked. Of course, Moru took a key out of the bag and said, this is the key to the store. During the renovation period, the number of people going to the residence will be increased to 20. Mr. Fang Hao instructed a nearby maid. He handed over a warfire card with the corresponding price to Moru. Now, both parties had reached an agreement. For this coming year, the store would belong to Mr. Fang Hao. As long as it didn't violate the regulations of the Trade Alliance, its use wouldn't be interfered with by the Trade Alliance. Shall we go take a look at the store now? Mr. Fang Hao asked. However, Moru shook his head and continued, no rush, there's one more thing. Oh? What is it? Moru took out a card and pushed it toward Mr. Fang Hao. What is this? He held it in his hand, examining it carefully. The material of the card was similar to that of a warfire card, almost like a black crystal stone, shaved into a thin layer. In the center was a shield showing a warfire coin pattern, surrounded by openwork carved patterns. It looked very impressive, like a VIP card. This is an invitation card from the Trade Alliance headquarters. With this card, you can freely enter and exit Trade Alliance headquarters at Residence 01, Moru explained. Trade Alliance headquarters, Residence 01? Mr. Fang Hao felt intrigued. The day before yesterday was when the World Channel had opened. It seemed the Trade Alliance headquarters was now open to transmigrators. Does everyone have one? Mr. Fang Hao asked. Of course not, apart from a few long-established and powerful members in each location, only member stores that meet the sales requirements get this privilege and receive this card, Moru explained. Oh, so that means I've met the sales requirements? Of course. The volume of goods sold in Mr. Fang Hao's store had indeed met the requirements. In fact, the quantity had reached astonishing levels, and the Trade Alliance had made a tidy sum from the fees they charged. If goblins kept annual records, Mr. Fang Hao would surely be number one in sales. far surpassing other long-established powers in his region. Then I'll keep it, and perhaps visit different places in time, Mr. Fang Hao said as he flipped his hand, stowing the card in his storage space. Mora didn't object. Instead, he continued, you must keep this card safe, losing it would be troublesome. Plus, Residence 01 will host a spring auction in half a month. With this invitation card, you can also attend the auction. An auction. He had attended the auction at Residence 032 last time. Many desirable items were sold there. But what made him regret not purchasing was the magical reactor blueprint from Goblin Technology. He was now planning to build his own aerial combat force, and mass-producing energy cores was the most crucial step. He had been waiting for another auction at Residence 032 to come around. Now it seemed possible that he might be able to buy the blueprint at the auction at Residence 01. Is there any difference between the auction at Residence 01 and the one at Residence 032? Ah! How can the local residence be compared to the headquarters? That gathers treasures from the entire region, Mora said. A maid brought over some pastries. Mora didn't hesitate to grab one and start eating. Ah, I see. Also, at Residence 01, you can meet other species. Humans like you love elves, maybe you'll meet a beautiful elf lady. Mora joked. Really? Mr. Fang Hao laughed. Chapter 850. Elves didn't know, but he already had a half-elf who was outwardly dignified and serious, but very clingy in private. After stuffing several pastries into his mouth, Mora curiously asked, cough. Have you all had breakfast? Hey? Fang Hao was taken aback, but quickly caught on. No wonder they came so early, they had come to freeload a meal. Haha. Check the kitchen, see how breakfast is coming along. Yes, master. The maid ran to the kitchen and asked. After having breakfast. Following another compliment on their culinary skills, Mora returned first to the Trade Alliance. After dealing with some matters in the city, Fang Hao called Dimitrija, Angia, Ira, and Little White, planning to take them to the Trade Alliance for a visit. Especially Ira, who hadn't gone anywhere else since staying in the city. This time, he also took them to see the Trade Alliance. Stepping into the teleportation light curtain, the five of them instantly arrived at the 032 base. Smooth roads, rows of orderly streetlights, made it still feel like they had returned to a modern city. Light screens lit up around them occasionally. There were also people of various races arriving here through the light screens. Moving forward together, Ira and Little White both widened their eyes. Nervous yet excited, they scrutinized their surroundings and whispered about some strange races they saw. Just like villagers who had just entered the city. At this time, as someone who had come here a few times, Angia demonstrated her abilities as a guide. From the races of passers-by to the buildings on both sides, she explained everything very thoroughly. Even some shops that Fang Hao didn't know about, Angia introduced right away. The group chatted as they walked. The three women were pretty happy, smiles hanging on their faces. Soon, they arrived at the shop they had rented. It was a 3-story building very similar to the Fairy Dream Tower in Silver Wing City. Pulling out the key, he opened the door. A slightly musty smell rushed towards them. The shop still had some tables and chairs remaining inside, lying on the ground, covered in dust. Everyone entered the room and opened all the doors and windows. Fang Hao casually took a few photos and sent them to Li Rong. Secured a shop in the Trade Alliance, layout is similar to the Fairy Dream Tower. It's 3 stories, arrange for stock preparation. Soon, Li Rong replied with a message, are you doing this on purpose? I just left with the army, and you've bought another shop. Oh, by the way, what's the Trade Alliance? The Trade Alliance is a headquarters for buying and selling goods. People always talk about it on the channel, haven't you heard? Fang Hao was speechless. Li Rong always attended the noble balls and banquets but ended up not knowing what the Trade Alliance was. I might have seen it, but I've never been involved. Is it impressive to open a shop there? Li Rong continued to ask. After thinking for a moment, Fang Hao explained, it's like the largest and most bustling mall in a region. All the prominent figures shop there. Oh, I see, that's actually quite impressive. What should I do since I'm not there? Li Rong asked. Here's the plan, I'll arrange for some minimalist renovations, then have you oversee stocking and sales. When you're back, I'll share the blueprint of the Trade Alliance with you, and then you'll be able to get there from your location. Fang Hao sent his thoughts over. I guess that'll have to do, Sai, it's all on you now. Okay. Fang Hao replied and then ended the chat. From the first floor to the third, everything was inspected. The shop had no issues, it just had been vacant for too long. Needed to air it out a bit. After completing their tour, Fang Hao turned to Little White and said, Little White, this place needs some cleaning. You'll have to work hard tomorrow, bring some people over, clean this place up, and then renovate it a bit. Oh, all right master, what are you planning to sell here? Little White asked. She actually had no objections and even felt somewhat pleased. She wouldn't have to work personally, and after coming out, she wouldn't have to get up early for training with Angia and the others every day. She could laze around for several days at least. Cosmetics, clothes, and accessories. Understood, master, Little White agreed and leaned forward a bit more. She leaned directly against Fang Hao. After he pinched her bottom, Little White dodged to the side in pain. After inspecting the shop, they opened the windows and locked up the doors. Taking Ira and Little White, they walked around areas they hadn't explored yet, then continued towards the direction of the teleportation array. They wanted to continue to the 01 Trade Alliance base to take a look. Arriving in front of the special teleportation array, he took out the invitation card. Under the guidance of a female goblin, they arrived in front of an oval, bluish door. Please, ladies and gentlemen, the female goblin returned the invitation card to Fang Hao and respectfully said. Fang Hao nodded. Taking the others, he directly stepped into the blue light screen. After a brief display of dizziness and a sensation of weightlessness, they arrived in a foreign place. Distinguished guests, welcome to the 01 base. A female voice rang out nearby. There stood a young woman dressed in a light blue robe, her pale face respectfully by the side. Her drooping light green hair allowed glimpses of her pointed ears. Elf Archer, Tier 5. The legendary Elf Clan. Seeing them for the first time still made Fang Hao and the others, including Angia and Ira at his side, look several times over. The appearance of the Elf Clan was truly beautiful, and they naturally exuded an air of nobility and elegance. Chapter 851. The presence of elves at this station ensured that even races with different aesthetic standards wouldn't find the Elf Clan to be ugly. Ladies and gentlemen, please come inside, said the Elf Clan woman with a smile. Fang Hao and his companions nodded and strode out. As they stepped out of the teleportation array, the scenery outside suddenly opened up. The smooth and wide roads were lit by tall street lamps adorned with Trade Alliance banners and welcome slogans. In the flower beds along the road, palm-sized flower demons were pruning the branches. A statue of a goddess, effortlessly lifting a water jug, poured water from it, causing droplets to splash and form a beautiful rainbow overhead. On the road, undead with tall crowns, fairies frolicking and flying in the air, elegant elves, orcs with bodies covered in totems, and members of the sea tribe draped in blue gossamer. All different races were present on the street at the same time. It was incredibly lively. It's so lively. I wish our place was like this too, Angia exclaimed with wide eyes. Even Dimitrija, who rarely showed any reaction, was looking around at the novelty of the surroundings. To Fang Hao, Area 01 now seemed more like a large tourist zone. The environmental construction rivaled that of heaven itself, with sculptures, horticulture, and seas of flowers everywhere. There were also plenty of places selling snacks. As they walked and looked around, they emerged from the teleportation array area and stepped into the market district. Here, shops stood in rows and were owned by many different races. Humans, dwarves, goblins, fairies. All kinds of races. Each had a sign hanging overhead. Arriving at a human clan shop, they saw a sign that read Hall of Justice above it. They pushed the door and entered. Inside, several humans were selecting goods at the counter. A human female salesperson came over with a smile. Ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we're just looking around. Okay, if you need anything, please feel free to call me. Fang Hao nodded and led his friends to start browsing the shop. Brilliant Cavalry Bow, blue, priced at 120 Warfire coins. Classic Battle Halberd, blue, priced at 200 Warfire coins. Sunglow Redwood Shepherd's Crook, blue, priced at 180 Warfire coins. Fang Hao looked through all the counters on the first floor in succession. They were selling blue equipment, with a small amount of green gear. Are these sold separately? Fang Hao asked curiously. The saleswoman from earlier came quickly, still smiling professionally. Sir, we do sell items individually here, but the main purpose is for product exhibition, for bulk orders through the trade alliance, she explained. Fang Hao nodded, indicating that he understood. So the items on display were mainly for show. The attendees here were members of the trade alliance, representatives of various powers. If something caught their eye, they would naturally purchase it in large quantities to equip their armies. Having realized this, Fang Hao immediately broadened his perspective. He felt as though he was selling cosmetics in Area 032. His commercial mindset was too narrow. Do you sell blueprints? Sir, we rarely have blueprints for sale here, they occasionally make it onto the counters, the saleswoman continued to explain. Fang Hao then turned his attention to the second floor. Are things sold on the second floor as well? Yes, sir. The second floor has certain requirements, only forces with a friendly relationship can make purchases. May we take a look there? Of course, sir. Fang Hao and his companions ascended to the second floor. It was still lined with counters, but the items they contained had reached purple quality. Trident, purple, priced at 750 Warfire coins, Human Clan Influence points 500. Stag Battle Halberd, purple, priced at 880 Warfire coins, Human Clan Influence points 500. Chapter 852. Light Vanguard Knight Sword, purple, priced at 900 Warfire coins, Human Clan Influence 800. Mountain Splitter Double-Edged Axe, purple, priced at 1300 Warfire coins, Human Clan Influence 800. Justice Brigade Emblem Shield, purple, priced at 1500 Warfire coins, Human Clan Influence 1000. Justice Defense Harpoon Kai, purple, priced at 2000 Warfire coins, Human Clan Influence 1000. On the second floor, all the equipment had turned purple. Moreover, the closer you got to the inside, the higher the selling price and the more influence of the human clan was needed. It was not until this moment that Fang Hao finally understood what the influence repeatedly mentioned by the system actually meant. It turned out to be the buying qualification for purchasing items. Although he still didn't know how to check how much influence he had. With so many system rewards and completing trade alliance orders, he had been accumulating little by little, plus 10, plus 20 at a time. He estimated that it had probably reached around 1,500. Buying equipment here, he indeed met the conditions. However, because his military force was so large, unless he could get his hands on blueprints, buying a few hundred or 1,000 pieces of equipment would not be much help to his territory. In the vast army, they would be hard to even locate if dropped. He turned a corner, and the third floor was not open, the door was closed. According to the blue color on the first floor and purple on the second, the third floor should feature orange equipment. Orange, in any power, was also a top-tier level, the treasure of the store. Upon inquiring with a clerk, he learned that the items on the third floor had been sent to the Trade Alliance and were intended for the Trade Alliance auction. After all, various powers would participate in such large-scale auctions. He continued to look around on the second floor. A set of equipment caught Fang Hao's attention. Spirit Bird Enemy Pants, purple, priced at 2,500 Warfire coins, Human Clan Influence 1,200. Spirit Bird Assault Boots, purple, priced at 2,200 Warfire coins, Human Clan Influence 1,200. Spirit Bird Gorilla Leather Armor, purple, priced at 2,500 Warfire coins, Human Clan Influence 1,200. Spirit Bird Enemy Helmet, purple, priced at 2,300 Warfire coins, Human Clan Influence 1,200. A purple set? Spirit Bird Gorilla Leather Armor, purple. Category, Armor. Defense, Level 4 Defense. Set effect, Strength increased by 10%, Movement speed increased by 35%, Agility increased by 30%, Skills recovery increased by 15%. Description, the Spirit Bird, a giant winged bird that cannot fly high, armor made from its leather greatly enhances the wearer's strength and speed. Ow! The attributes are nice. Angia. Angia. Fang Hao looked back. He saw Angia sitting on the stair steps, eating while chatting with Ira and Little White. The three of them had no interest whatsoever in these pieces of equipment and weapons. Only he and Dimitrija were paying attention to the equipment behind the counter. The three seemed to have come here for a picnic. Angia. Fang Hao called out. Ah. Angia responded, walking over. This set suits you well, Fang Hao said, looking toward the counters set. Angia also looked in its direction. Yeah, it's nice. She glanced at the price, it's so expensive. Although she was unable to see the properties like a transmigrator could, she could tell from the craftsmanship of the leather armor that it was quite a good piece. And the price tag, along with the description, could represent the level of the armor. It suits you well. Fang Hao looked back at the female clerk. I'll take this set from the counter. Of course, sir, the clerk said with a smile. She then notified the people below to fetch a set of the same armor from the warehouse and handed it to Fang Hao. Angia was somewhat dazed. She snapped back to reality when the leather armor reached her hands. It's so expensive, Angia muttered softly. It's not easy to find something that suits you, cutting back on some of your food would cover the cost, Fang Hao said. You're talking nonsense, this set could feed me for a lifetime, she retorted. Fang Hao paid at the counter, and finding nothing else of interest, left the store. Once they went outside, Angia happily hugged her new armor, disregarding the food in her hands. She handed it all to Little White. Although Angia rarely participated in battles now, she was still considered a military general, and she had grown up rather impoverished. Sometimes she didn't even have enough food to eat, and occasionally had to act as a bandit. Naturally, she knew how precious high-quality armor was. This kind of joy was something Ira and Little White could hardly sympathize with. For a piece of leather gear. To be so gleefully hugging it. The group continued their leisurely stroll. They visited the dwarf, beast clan, and even elf stores. The shops here had basically the same sale model as the human clan stores. Finished equipment was displayed on counters on both the first and second floors, mainly for sale in bulk to buyers outside. Fang Hao looked at the equipment one by one. The range was quite comprehensive, but for Fang Hao, there was no need to replace things in large quantities. Before them was an undead store. Fang Hao walked up to the store and pushed open the door directly. Clang! The copper bell hung on the door let out a crisp sound, alerting that a customer had entered. Unlike the other stores, the undead store was much more desolate. With shelves made of white bone and glass, various finished items were showcased. Tap, tap, tap. A skeleton clerk quickly stepped out. Seeing humans, orcs, and lizardmen enter, its steps hesitated for a moment as its soul fire began to sway back and forth. Fang Hao paid no attention to it. He simply walked straight into the shop and started looking around. Desert Infantry Bow, blue, priced at 120 Warfire coins. Chapter 853. Serpent Fang Dagger, blue, price, 180 Warfire coins. Fang Spear, blue, price, 200 Warfire coins. After glancing through several pieces of equipment, he found no major differences from other shop offerings. The first floor predominantly featured blue items. Just as Fang Hao was feeling bored and considering going to the second floor, he found something of interest in the latter part of the store. Silverfish Wolf Bones price, 450 Warfire coins. Carrion Wild Boar Bones price, 150 Warfire coins. Desert Camel Bones price, 500 Warfire coins. Sandy Long-Armed Militia Bone price, 700 Warfire coins. Sandy Vulture Bones price, 900 Warfire coins. So expensive. At the sight of bones being sold as merchandise, Fang Hao was initially surprised but then felt it made sense. However, the prices were indeed exorbitantly high. He was unsure about other bones, but those of a carrion wild boar might only be a second or third tier beast. Even if transported in bulk, they shouldn't be worth 150 Warfire coins. But Fang Hao could understand. After all, the bones were sold here for the conversion for the undead clan. Naturally, the prices would be higher. What tier is the Sandy Vulture? Fang Hao asked the skeleton attendant beside him. The skeleton attendant looked at him curiously and answered, Sir, it is a 6th tier. Good, I'll take these bones, package them for me. Ah? Oh. The skeleton attendant was somewhat dazed. He was surprised that a human was buying bones here. If it was for cooking soup, he could just go outside to buy them. But having a shop in the Trade Alliance means abiding by the rules here, not discriminating against living and undead creatures when making sales. After all, the doors were opened for business. The skeleton attendant began packing the vulture bones while Fang Hao and his group ascended to the second floor. The second floor counters were still set up with skeletal frameworks. Golden Drum Crocodile Leather Armor, purple, price, 900 Warfire coins, Undead Clan Influence 800. Tempered Edge One-Handed Sword, purple, price, 1000 Warfire Coins, Undead Clan Influence 1000. Bloodthirsty Helmet, purple, price, 1000 Warfire Coins, Undead Clan Influence 1000. Ravenbone Spear, purple, price, 1500 Warfire Coins, Undead Clan Influence 1200. He looked over the equipment, feeling nothing special. He then moved to another side. Sandy Poisonous Snakebone Price, 1000 Warfire Coins, Undead Clan Influence 800. Giant Swamp Crocodile Bone Price, 1200 Warfire Coins, Undead Clan Influence 1000. Giant Hook Poisonous Scorpion Bone Price, 1500 Warfire Coins, 1200. Human Pilgrim Bones Price, 1500 Warfire Coins. Demon Rat Spear Soldier Bones Price, 1500 Warfire Coins. Dwarf Whitebeard Warrior Bones Price, 1800 Warfire Coins, 1500. Lizardman Skink Skirmisher Bone Price, 2000 Warfire Coins, 1800. The bones sold on the second floor were even more outrageously priced, almost on par with purple equipment. Moreover, there were soldier types from various races. No wonder, there was an endless conflict between living and undead. Displaying someone's bones as merchandise was truly excessive. But it was also evident that the bones sold were measured. All were spear soldiers, warriors, skirmishers, without any special soldier types. This could be out of consideration for the feelings of various factions, or perhaps, higher grade bones were not sold outside. Or maybe the quantities are low, sold as soon as they are displayed. It could also be a means to control the development of other undead creatures. The sandy poisonous snake, what tier is it and does it have any characteristics? Fang Hao continued to ask the attendant beside him. Third tier, sir. Are you asking about its characteristics before its death? The skeleton attendant questioned. After its transformation, I'm asking about its usefulness before it died. Oh, after transformation, the sandy poisonous snake can burrow into soft soil layers and its attacks carry a certain amount of poison, the skeleton attendant explained. Fang Hao nodded and continued. What about the giant swamp crocodile? After being transformed, the giant swamp crocodile has amphibious traits and considerable biting force. And what about the giant hook poisonous scorpion? The giant hook poisonous scorpion is an 8th tier unit, almost the size of an adult horse. It uses its 2 front pincers and a spiked tail as its main weapons and can also bury itself in the ground for camouflage. Fang Hao continued to inquire, what about the pilgrim and the skink skirmisher? The pilgrim is a 5th tier special soldier belonging to the human clan's church. It gains a boost in all attributes under stimulated faith. The skink skirmisher is also 5th tier, amphibious in waterways, and moves unaffected in dense forests. The pilgrim must be a soldier type of the human clan's church. Being able to reach the 5th tier is quite good, and the skill to boost all attributes under faith is indeed a good skill. And the skink skirmisher is clearly a soldier type of the lizardman. The amphibious trait of the lizardmen and their ability to move unrestricted in dense forests isn't particularly outstanding. No matter how fast they move, they can't keep up with my skeleton mantis. The mantismen are excellent at hunting. Moving through the branches is strikingly similar to scenes from Naruto. Fang Hao nodded but didn't speak, walking further inside. Inside, there were some less significant items displayed. His eyes swept over them, they were all green and blue, not a single purple to be seen, let alone orange. Having looked once over, he didn't find anything he needed. He then told the skeleton attendant, I'll take the ravenbone spear, giant hook poisonous scorpion, and pilgrim. Chapter 854. The skeleton cashier scratched his bare skull. All right, customer. He simply couldn't understand what the heck was going on. He had been selling goods here for hundreds of years, but this was the first time he had seen a human buying white bone. And what's with the other beast clan women? Why weren't they afraid, just eating and chatting away? Had the undead become accepted by living creatures? As the skeleton cashier pondered, he quickly wrapped up several items. Customer, your goods are wrapped. Fang Hao took them. As he turned to go downstairs, the 3 women were sitting by the staircase, starting up another conversation. It was as if they were in their own home when in the shop of the undead. Angia and Little White were still eating, thoroughly enjoying their food. After going downstairs, he paid the required money and stored all the items in his storage space. Wandering around with a bunch of skeletal frames would have looked a bit unsightly. After leaving the shop, they continued to stroll around. Passing by 2 gardens on their way, Fang Hao used the Book of Lords to take a few pictures of the 3 women. Enjoying the modern way of keeping memories. All along the way, there were still many people around. Most of them looked busy and hurried, while there were others, like the group, roaming and looking around. While walking, Fang Hao started to toy with the idea of opening his own shop here. Similar to the shops in this place, he had blue and purple equipment, including gear for humans, dwarves, and trolls. And machinery, covering all races. No fear of bad business. Continuing down the road, they didn't feel like entering any more shops afterwards. Most types were similar, and aside from the undeads, there were no remarkable items that would significantly boost combat power. They finally reached the central square. In front of one building, there was an extraordinary bustle. The stone building had auction and evaluation inscribed at the top. Standing in the distance, Fang Hao and the others saw groups of people queuing up. Among these people were humans from the church, stone people, elves, fairies, as well as orcs and trolls. There were also some from races that were hard to identify by their looks alone, it was just that they were too far to see these people's information. Just as Fang Hao was about to stop someone to ask, he felt someone watching him. Looking to the side, he saw a brown-haired, brown-eyed middle-aged man standing among a group of grey dwarves, curiously sizing him up. After hesitating for a moment, the middle-aged man had a brief, hushed conversation with the grey dwarves before walking briskly towards Fang Hao. "Hey! Are you an earthling?" asked the middle-aged man. Fang Hao nodded, "Yes. From Japan." "Hwasya." The brown-haired middle-aged man was stunned, taking a careful look at Fang Hao and the heroes, the rabbit girl, and the fox girl around him, his eyes full of suspicion. "Could it be you are, cough, what's your name?" The middle-aged man polite yet curious. "Fule, what about you?" "Oh, I'm Wadey, I thought you were Fang Hao for a moment, scared me there," continued the middle-aged man as he adjusted his collar, showing off 3 large gold rings on his hand. Compared with the Western middle-aged man, the clothes Fang Hao wore were much more ordinary, simple trousers and a short-sleeved shirt, nothing particularly extraordinary. Only the armor of Dimitrija stood out. Similarly, Ira and Little White also attracted attention with their appearance. "Ah, I thought you were Fang Hao too," Fang Hao said. "Haha, you're quite the character," Wadey clapped Fang Hao on the shoulder, "I didn't expect to run into another earthling here." Fang Hao also found it incredible. The World Channel indeed had plenty of opportunities, the World Channel had only just opened, and already someone had qualified to come here. But considering it, at least a few 100 million people from Earth had transmigrated. A high elimination rate also meant many had the chance for opportunity. The ranking list of the World Channel was only a superficial way of utilizing resources and land area for assessment, it didn't truly represent an individual's strength. Even here, if he saw a foreigner with an S on their chest wearing their underwear over their pants, he wouldn't find it strange. Fang Hao didn't continue the chit-chat but asked instead, "Why are so many people queuing up here? What are they doing?" "Hey?" Wadey was surprised, then chuckled, "Come on, brother, don't jest, you're here to evaluate items, aren't you?" Fang Hao genuinely didn't know, they were just out for a stroll. "Ah, no, not really." Seeing his genuine ignorance, Wadey explained, "Do you know about the spring auction?" "I do. That's the place for auction item registration. If you have things to auction, you go there to register. A valuer will then price them, and if approved, they'll be auctioned on the day of the event," Wadey pointed ahead. The spring auction, Goblin Mora had only told him the time. Not much information was shared, it seems the auction was open to the public. No strict restrictions. "Ah, got it." Fang Hao stroked his chin, pondering if he had anything worth evaluating to make a bit of money at the auction. With a world so big, surely goods would sell. Before Fang Hao could ask anything more, Wadey pointed to the side, "Look over there." Fang Hao looked to see the sturdy, shorter dwarves with grey hair and beards. "I came with the grey dwarves for the valuation. After the evaluation of the items, they will even take me to the auction," Wadey said, somewhat boastfully. Fang Hao nodded, it was this kind of vassal relationship again. In truth, when transmigrators arrived, they had shallow roots, and most had to become vassals to some nearby powerful entities to survive. Not causing malicious harm to other transmigrators wasn't anything bad. And those who were vassals often lived even more securely. Like Wadey, who seemed to be getting along quite well with the dwarves, dressed in finery with gold rings, and even brought here. That's great, I'm impressed. Hey! You don't need to feel envious, the lizardmen are quite nice, but be cautious, I heard these lizardmen eat people, don't let them eat you, whispered Wadey, sneakily glancing at Dimitrija not far away. Chapter 855. I will be careful, Fang Hao continued to ask, what are those dwarves assessing? Wadey glanced at the dwarves and lowered his voice, the merchandise the dwarves are selling is quite remarkable. What is it? An orange piece of machinery called the windpipe cannon. It can shoot from 5 barrels at once. Any turtle shell formation or cavalry formation would be decimated by a single volley, leaving nothing but scattered flesh across the ground, Wadey said with a serious tone. Can such a thing really be sold? Dwarf machinery is quite famous, and I heard it sells well. But the Dwarf Alliance has rules against selling too much to outsiders. Oh, I see. From Wadey, Fang Hao also got some useful information. The ones who came with him were grey dwarves from the dwarf race. This dwarf tribe is one of the more sparsely populated lines within the dwarf community. They are known for their brutal nature and combat skills. And the grey hair and beards are not a sign of old age but their natural color from birth, which is also the origin of their name. The two chatted for a while longer. As the loud voices of the dwarves rose, Wadey returned to the queue. Is that your friend? The grey dwarf asked. Just a transmigrator I happened to run into. A transmigrator? To have made it here, his strength must be considerable. Is it possible to pinpoint the location of his domain? The grey dwarf asked in a deep voice. Wadey shook his head, his domain isn't near the dwarf city, and since he came with the lizardmen, he might not be that strong. The grey dwarf sighed with some disappointment. If that guy had earned his spot in Residence 01 on his own merit, then his domain's strength must be significant. Recently, the dwarves have been in need of both supplies and slaves. If it were possible to plunder a transmigrator with abundant resources, many issues could be eased. The greedy gaze of the grey dwarf lingered on Fang Hao for quite a while. It wasn't until Dimitrija's cold, vertically slit eyes glanced over that the grey dwarf's body shook violently, a chill akin to being targeted by a venomous snake spreading throughout his spine. An orange hero. This transmigrator was affiliated with a powerful lizardman faction, not to be trifled with. Lizardmen are not numerous, but they have a much longer history. Legend has it that the lizardmen lived on this continent even before humans and dwarves, and the forbidden zones that no one dares to enter are filled with the ruins of lizardmen temples and altars. Lizardmen rarely appear within the sight of other races, but nobody actively provokes them either. Lord, those grey dwarves have unfriendly intentions, Dimitrija whispered. Pay them no mind. They're just a minor clan. Let's queue up as well and take part in this auction, Fang Hao said. Together, he and his group started to queue up. They passed the time eating and drinking together, not bored at all. The queue moved quickly as well. Wadey left with the grey dwarves, waving to Fang Hao's group as he went. Before long, it was Fang Hao and his companion's turn. Behind the small window was a goblin with a monocular gold-rimmed eyeglass, looking down at the registration book in his hands. What are you registering? The goblin's shrill voice rang out. Dwarf machinery, Fang Hao replied. The goblin glanced up, surprised to see a human selling dwarf machinery. Okay, what's the machinery called, and how new is it? We've got appraisers, and if there's major damage or if it's not popular, it could be rejected, the goblin explained. It seemed that the goblin thought Fang Hao had obtained dwarf machinery from somewhere else to sell. Furthermore, dwarves from other areas also sold machinery. If one's own merchandise was used, it clearly wouldn't have an advantage. A brand new 5-barrel wind organ cannon, said Fang Hao. A 5-barrel wind organ cannon. The goblin's interest was piqued, and he took another look at the young man before him. The grey dwarves had just registered a wind organ cannon, and now a human was registering another. Are you sure it's a brand new 5-barrel wind organ cannon? The goblin confirmed once more. Yes, brand new, Fang Hao nodded. The goblin scribbled a few notes on paper and handed him a slip. Enter through here, an appraiser will receive you, the goblin pointed Fang Hao in a direction. The 5-barrel wind organ cannon is one of the most outstanding pieces of machinery among dwarves. There are many types of powerful cannons in the world, but the technology to simultaneously fire from 5 barrels with such great power is truly only mastered by dwarves. Therefore, each wind organ cannon carries a high price in the market. Moreover, the number of cannons dwarves sell to outsiders is tightly controlled. Even at headquarters auctions, they don't sell too many. Thank you. Fang Hao received the slip and led his group towards the entrance indicated. They walked through a stone corridor. A human receptionist stood in front. After seeing the slip in Fang Hao's hand, room 012 for appraisal. The room was not hard to find. After knocking gently on the door of room 012, a somewhat hoarse voice responded, "Come in." Pushing the door open, they entered. The room was roughly 70 square meters. It was quite empty inside, with an open space in the middle, a long desk at the back, and several cabinets filled with various items. Behind the long desk sat a skeleton undead. It wore a cream-colored robe, with the collar, belt and cuffs embroidered with gold thread symbols representing death and penance. Skeleton Technician, Tier 7. Fang Hao immediately recognized his profession. A technician? In Fang Hao's understanding, a technician is skilled in assembling and repairing constructs. Chapter 856. It should have some similarities with mechanical devices. It seems that the appraiser is assigned based on your device. It's not randomly appointed. What would the guests like to evaluate? The skeleton technician asked. A 5-pipe organ cannon. Didn't bring it. I need to see the finished product in order to conduct an evaluation, the skeleton technician continued. Brought it, just a moment. Fang Hao opened the Book of Lords and contacted Dong Jiayu, asking her to directly trade over a 5-pipe organ cannon. Bang! A dull sound. The heavy organ cannon appeared out of nowhere, smashing the stone floor and stirring up a cloud of dust. The soul fire of the skeleton technician trembled slightly, but the absence of emotions did not cause him to display any unusual actions. He simply stood up and took some tools from a cabinet behind him. He walked towards the organ cannon to inspect it. It was evident that the skeleton technician was inspecting it very thoroughly. And it took a significant amount of time. If it weren't for the fear of dismantling the device and not being able to reassemble it, he might have taken it apart for inspection right there. About half an hour passed. The skeleton technician finally stood up and calmly walked back to the table. He said, "The device has no issues, I can confirm it is a dwarf's 5-pipe organ cannon, how many do you plan to sell?" Fang Hao did not immediately respond, but asked, "May I ask how many the dwarves are going to sell?" "I'm not sure, but the total number sold in the past 2 years was around 50, the skeleton technician answered. "Okay, then we'll sell 100, all of the same quality," Fang Hao said. Upon hearing this, the skeleton technician's head lifted. The soul fire jumped violently, displaying a shocked emotion. "That's more than the dwarves sold. Are you sure? The quality is all the same." The skeleton technician asked back. "Certain." The skeleton technician nodded, "Okay, you can set a starting price and a direct transaction price. That is, the auction base price and the buyout price. What do the dwarves usually set?" "The starting price per cannon is 5 million warfire coins, the buyout price 8 million. "Okay, I'll do the same as them." Swish, swish, swish. The skeleton technician took Fang Hao's invitation card, started writing a lot of information on a piece of paper on the side. After finishing writing, he continued, "All right, deliver 100 windpipe cannons here within a week." "Understood." After responding, Fang Hao collected the windpipe cannon inside the room again. He left the room with the others. They exited the evaluation area. The group continued to roam around Station No. 01, had dinner, and then returned to the territory through the teleportation array. Back in the territory, Angia and Ira left. Fang Hao went straight to the skeleton conversion field. The biggest gain this time was the purchase of various types of white bone from beasts. Although their ranks were not very high, they perfectly complemented the shortcomings of his troops. He threw the bones into the conversion field for transformation. After processing the purchased white bone, Fang Hao then saw the raven bone spear stored in the spatial storage. This was originally bought for Dong Jiayu. He had momentarily forgotten about it. He opened the Book of Lords, found Dong Jiayu, and sent a message. "Jiayu, this is for you, raven bone spear, purple, please receive it later." Soon, a message came back from the other side. "Okay, Brother Hao, love you, Coxo." Fang Hao set up the transaction for the Ravenbone Spear and sent it directly. Dong Jiao was currently using a purple-colored Thunderblade halberd, which actually had pretty good attributes. But halberds and spears are still slightly different, and moreover, the Ravenbone Spear carried a corrupt attribute, dealing extra damage to living creatures. Once the transaction was confirmed, Fang Hao continued towards where the skeleton merchants were, asking Dejin to have a spare moment to send 100 cannons to the Trade Alliance's Station No. 01. After handling the auction event, once he was done with everything, as evening approached and after having dinner, Fang Hao still went for a hot spring bath. Soaking in the warm hot spring, Ira was beside him, kneading his shoulders. "Master," Ira called softly. Fang Hao opened his eyes. The temperature of the hot spring made Ira's skin slightly pink, her two large ears were perked up, giving her a special feeling. "Master, a few of the maids have turned 19, Ira said softly. Fang Hao nodded. "Oh. Master, at this age, within our tribe, it's time to settle down," Ira spoke again. Ding! Suddenly, the Book of Lords emitted a notification sound. Fang Hao turned around, propping his head on Ira's thigh, and opened the Book of Lords. The private chat was from Tian Xiong. Tian Xiong was not a resident of Fang Hao's territory but was a transmigrator he had traded with a few times before. The four-footed giant lizard had been purchased from him. Since Fang Hao's reputation had grown, the Book of Lords had activated a friend verification feature. Since they had traded before, they were by default considered friends. "Fang Hao, big guy, I want to ask you for a favor." The other side was very polite, and Fang Hao couldn't say much. "Let's hear it." Do you have any Warfire coins?" "I'd like to exchange some Warfire coins from you," Tian Xiong said. Fang Hao was taken aback, asking himself for currency exchange. This was the first time he encountered such a thing. He did have a supply of Warfire coins, but how to exchange them? "I do have plenty of Warfire coins and can help you, but have you thought about how to exchange them?" "The trade options provided by the Book of Lords don't allow for currency exchange," Fang Hao said. The other side fell silent as well. Chapter 857. After a while, Tian Xiong said, "Boss, do you have any ways to help? When the time comes for the exchange, for every 1,000 Warfire coins, I will give you an extra 100 Bios Theod gold." Normally the exchange rate between Bios Theod gold and Warfire coins is 5:1, the extra 100 Bios Theod gold being the service fee for Fang Hao. Of course, Fang Hao didn't really care about such a small amount of money. It was too little, not even enough to buy a skeleton in the 01 residence. But he would still help out. "You first tell me what you need the Warfire coins for, how many do you need?" Fang Hao continued to ask. Tian Xiong did not conceal anything and directly said, "I've made contact with the lizardmen, and after completing some preliminary tasks, I've obtained a chance to change factions. I can join the lizardmen faction, which is very important for the environment and current situation of my territory. So, I'm planning to sell whatever I can to buy this opportunity." Seeing Tian Xiong's reply, Fang Hao was somewhat surprised. He himself was from the Undead faction and had guessed that factions could be changed. But Tian Xiong was the first person he encountered who was changing factions in the later stages. And he could even join the lizardmen. If Tian Xiong's territory was within the area of the lizardmen, joining their faction would indeed enhance his own security. This is indeed a great opportunity. "Yes, boss, do you have any way to help? I really can't come up with so many Warfire coins, that's why I came to bother you," Tian Xiong said anxiously. How many Warfire coins do you need?" 2,000, but I want to exchange for 3,000, keeping 1,000 as a reserve, Tian Xiong said. Little White, wearing a loose nightgown, with her fair thighs exposed, walked in. In her hand, she carried 2 cups of fruit wine. Fang Hao's eyes lit up. "Do you have a trade alliance building?" "I do." "Then you should be able to go to Trade Alliance Outpost number 032, right?" Fang Hao continued to inquire. "I can. Oh, you mean we go to the outpost to exchange, right? That's great." Tian Xiong immediately understood. Fang Hao said, "Then, tomorrow at noon, bring your money to the newly renovated store across from the bar and find a fox girl named Little White. She will exchange the corresponding amount of Warfire coins with you." "That's awesome, thank you so much, boss," Tian Xiong gratefully said. "No big deal. If there's anything you need in the future, just say the word, boss. Right. Call ended. Fang Hao felt tired and decided to go back to his room to rest. The two ladies were still in the backyard, chatting about the fun things they saw today. Back in his room, he lay straight on the bed. He dimmed the light, covering the glow of the night stone. Lying in bed, Fang Hao started to ponder the future development of his territory, including increasing food production, strengthening the defense at the borders, stabilizing the population in various regions, and gathering faith. It seemed that as a lord, he had many things to consider. As he mulled these things over, sleepiness gradually crept upon him. Just as Fang Hao was drifting between sleep and wakefulness, the door to his room was opened. Creak. The door was gently pushed open, then quickly closed. Hearing this sound of the door opening in a daze, Fang Hao didn't pay it much mind. No enemies could come into the territory, only a few individuals such as Ira and Little White could enter his room. Probably one of them, done chatting, was missing him again. Soon after, the rustling sound of clothes being removed could be heard. Following that, she slid under the quilt, and Fang Hao subconsciously wrapped his arms around her. Two large ears plopped against his forehead. The body was smooth and tender. It was Ira. MMM. Ira let out a soft hum and began to kiss Fang Hao actively. Chapter 858. The soft lips took the initiative and pressed forward. A pair of small hands ceaselessly teased Fang Hao's body, which soon had an evident response. So forward today, Fang Hao remarked, though something felt off, the other party was very earnest but somewhat clumsy. His suspicions had just arisen, but as the woman in his arms continued to provoke him, his clear consciousness began to blur. Since Ira was so forward today, Fang Hao decided not to fuss over the details. He gently placed his hands on her slim waist. With a forward thrust of his hips. MMM. A moan slipped from the woman's mouth, and Fang Hao felt the warmth at his lower body and a distinct resistance. Damn, something's not right, not Ira. Fang Hao's body jolted, and he immediately withdrew. Who are you? A carp kicked and sprung up from the bed, extending a hand, and a flame-orange arrow appeared out of thin air, lighting up the room. Red Fruit. Red Fruit knelt by the bed, covering herself with the bedding, nervously. She glanced cautiously at Fang Hao, then bowed her head and said, Master, it's Red Fruit's fault. Fang Hao looked at the nude rabbit girl. Her trembling and softly sobbing demeanor left him at a loss for words. He dissipated the magic he had gathered and let down the nightstone chandelier. Red Fruit was a rabbit girl among the maids, always obedient and well-behaved, who studied herbalism. Red Fruit, you startled me, Fang Hao said. Before Red Fruit could reply, the door was pushed open. Ira and Little White rushed in. Seeing the two as if in confrontation, and Red Fruit, who was now trembling with nerves. Ira said, Little White, take Red Fruit and wait outside for a moment. Okay, Sister Ira, Little White responded, assisting Red Fruit towards the door. Red Fruit still cast a careful glance at Fang Hao. Once only Ira and Fang Hao were left in the room. Ira took the initiative to say, Master, it was I who allowed Red Fruit to come in. Ah? What's going on? Ira explained, Master, I told you at the hot springs, remember? Told me what? Red Fruit is 19 years old. In our tribe, girls her age would already be raising children. Do you plan to send them away? Ira asked. Fang Hao furrowed his brow and recalled that at the hot springs, Ira had mentioned a few maids who were 18 or 19 years old. So, you arranged for Red Fruit to come in quietly. Ira anxiously said, I thought the master had tacitly consented, so I let Red Fruit come in first today. In fact, all the maids like you very much, and they don't want to leave here either. The maid's loyalty had pretty much reached 100 points. Add to that the implicit meaning behind the relationships of master and maid. And Fang Hao's inaction towards them had started to worry the maids. They feared that one day Fang Hao would send them all away. Fang Hao was stunned. Was Ira reproaching him for not approaching the other maids? Indeed. This world's customs surely couldn't be considered with a modern mindset. Does Red Fruit consent? Asked Fang Hao. Of course, all the maids are willing, said Ira. Noticing Fang Hao's reaction gradually returning, she smiled slightly, kneeling on the ground, edging closer to his legs, lifting her long hair, her head slowly bowing. Seeing her own achievements, Ira revealed a contented smile. Gently, she said, Master, I was the one who let Red Fruit in, so don't frighten her anymore, she's timid. After speaking, she addressed the door, Red Fruit, come in. The door opened again, and Red Fruit, wrapped in a thin blanket with her fair shoulders exposed, entered with her head lowered. Ira instructed, Red Fruit, the master was just not prepared. Go tend to him now. With that, Ira left the room with Little White. Master, Red Fruit murmured with her head down. Fang Hao smiled faintly, opening his arms wide, come here. Red Fruit blushed and walked over, sitting on his lap, her cheek pressed against his chest. Fang Hao said tenderly, Red Fruit, you've dressed up nicely today, it suits you. Her face growing redder, Red Fruit clung tightly to him, as if trying to merge into his body. Fang Hao undid her blanket and pressed Red Fruit beneath him. From the room, the sound of a woman's suppressed moans echoed, melodious yet cautiously restrained, whispering softly, utterly seductive. Eventually, the troubling sounds subsided, mumbling softly. Red Fruit, are you okay? On the bed, the two lay entwined, both naked, with Red Fruit leaning on his chest, blushing, she nodded. Soon, the moans started again. The next morning, after breakfast, there was a distinct change in the air at the Lord's mansion. Outside, the maids looked at Fang Hao with gleaming eyes, full of hope and adoration. Fang Hao ruffled the head of the rabbit girl at the doorway. He walked straight out of the Lord's mansion, heading for the skeleton conversion field. After a night of conversion, those 3 white bones must have been transformed. Indeed, outside the skeleton conversion field stood 3 white bones. A skeleton vulture, a scorpion almost the size of an adult horse, and a seemingly ordinary human white bone. Fang Hao approached and inspected them. Skeleton vulture, Tier 5. Alignment, Undead. Racial traits, Flight, Undead, Hollow skeleton, Light weakness. Skills, Peck, Pounce, Infection. Innate abilities, Advanced Flight Mastery, Intermediate Predation Mastery. Chapter 859. Note, the skeleton troops converted from corpses still retain the characteristics and attack methods they had in life. The desert vulture had a sizable body, with white bones for its frame, except for a layer of flesh membrane wrapped around its wings. This ensured its ability to fly. Its talons and beak were incredibly sharp and served as its primary means of attack. Back then, the skeleton clerk said that the desert vulture was a Tier 6 troop type. After conversion, it automatically fell 1 tier, becoming a Tier 5 troop type. The skeleton clerk probably didn't consider that Fang Hao was also part of the undead faction, so he quoted the tier from when it was alive. Fang Hao bought this vulture mainly to fill the gap in his aerial forces. For flying units, he currently had Skeleton Giant Bat, Tier 3, Skeleton Pseudo Dragon Guard, Tier 6, and Bone Dragon, Tier 10. However, both Skeleton Pseudo Dragon and Bone Dragon required dragon crystals for recruitment, so the only ones that could demonstrate their ability to increase 100-fold in numbers were the Skeleton Giant Bats. But having been used until now, Tier 3 was a bit too low. So when he saw that the vulture bones were for sale, he bought them immediately for conversion. After inspecting the vulture, Fang Hao moved on to the giant hook poisonous scorpion. The scorpion, with a body length close to that of a horse, was quite intimidating, especially the hook that hung above its body. Undead Giant Hook Poisonous Scorpion, Tier 7. Faction, Undead. Racial traits, Undead, Hollow Skeleton, weak to light magic. Skills, Pincer Attack, Stinger, Poison, Burrow. Innate abilities, Advanced Crawling Mastery, Advanced Hunting Mastery. Note, the skeleton troops converted from corpses still retain the characteristics and attack methods they had in life. Giant Hook Poisonous Scorpion wasn't just any skeleton, but similar to the previously transformed undead centipede. Its appearance was more like that of an arthropod insect without flesh, possessing a withered yet hard animal carapace. The entire body was pitch black and reflective, quite close to the shape of a living scorpion. Show me the burrow ability, Fang Hao ordered. The undead giant hook poisonous scorpion moved its scorpion legs briskly, scuttling to an open area nearby. Then it pressed its body to the ground, shaking violently. Soil from the ground began to be pushed aside. The scorpion's body started to burrow down swiftly. Its pincers then smoothed the soil above its head. Well. Fang Hao watched from the side, stroking his chin. How should I put this? It certainly did bury itself, but the process was slow, and the burial site was obviously marked. Unless someone else was around to tidy up the top layer of soil. If that's the case, Fang Hao might as well bury other troops instead, achieving the same effect. After all, the undead don't need to breathe, so being buried won't lead to suffocation or death. This ability wasn't very useful. Come on out. With a rustling sound, the giant hook poisonous scorpion crawled out. Fill in the hole. The scorpion began to fill the pit again. Continuing the inspection, he finally examined the pilgrim. Skeleton pilgrim, Tier 4. Racial traits, undead, hollow skeleton, weak to light magic, hostile faith. Skills, faith, hammer strike. Innate abilities, intermediate blunt weapon mastery. Hostile faith, this unit is unstable, with a 30% chance of death. Faith, active ability activation increases all attributes by 15%. Hammer strike, active adds 10% damage. Note, the skeleton troops converted from corpses still retain the characteristics and attack methods they had in life. Damn it, I've been had. Going by the skeleton clerk's description, the faith ability could boost all attributes. That skill sounded pretty good. Increased attributes meant a higher survival rate on the battlefield, bolstering the overall strength of a Zerg strategy. The pilgrim was a church's troop type in life, which he had guessed. But what he had never expected was the attribute hostile faith. A 30% instability leading directly to death. 1/3, damn it, that's harsh. For several thousand Warfire coins, all you sold me was this thing, what a rip-off. Whether it was the 30% death rate during recruitment or suddenly losing 30% of the people on the battlefield, both resulted in severe losses, even affecting the direction of the battle. It could be said that this money was utterly wasted, and Fang Hao did not plan on using it in the future. Stand by outside the city. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 skeletons, 1 flying, 1 crawling, 1 walking. They quickly vanished from sight. Fang Hao went back to the skeleton conversion field to check the recruitment conditions for the 3 skeletons. Skeleton Vulture, Wriggling Spine 5, Death Trace 3. Skeleton Pilgrim, Wriggling Spine 4, Soul Crystal 1, Death Trace 2. Undead Giant Hook Poisonous Scorpion, Wriggling Spine 7, Death Trace 7, Star Silver 2. The Skeleton Pilgrim belonged to the human faction, hence it consumed soul crystals. But for the Skeleton Vulture and the Undead Giant Hook Poisonous Scorpion, no faction-specific materials appeared in the recruitment conditions. This should mean that they fell under the category of beasts. However, the absence of faction-specific materials had been compensated with Death Trace. The normal recruitment conditions for a Tier 5 troop were Wriggling Spine 5, Exclusive Material 1, Death Trace 2. Now, for the Skeleton Vulture, the Death Trace had directly reached 3 units. The same was true for the Undead Giant Hook Poisonous Scorpion, where the exclusive material was included in Death Trace. This was not a bad deal at all. Go and test their combat abilities. Fang Hao also headed towards the outskirts of the city, intending to see the combat power of the Skeleton Vulture and the Giant Hook Poisonous Scorpion. As for the Pilgrim, well, forget it, it's not needed. Meanwhile, in a transmigrator's territory to the southwest, Tianziong walked out of the teleportation array with 2 subordinates. Looking at the 3 Warfire cards with a denomination of 1,000 in his hand, a satisfied smile spread across his face. Lord. Tianziong nodded, then immediately asked, those lizardmen. The soldier answered in a low voice, they're still outside the north of the city, no movement. Tianziong nodded, gestured, and swiftly walked with several people towards the North City Gate. Passing by rows of buildings, they exited the North City Gate. After covering some distance, they spotted a lizardman encampment stationed ahead. Lizardmen wearing armor and wielding weapons were patrolling normally, and 4-legged giant lizards laden with goods were resting on the ground. Tianziong licked his lips and flashed a smile. He strode forward and said, I would like to see the priest. 1 moment, said the lizardman before entering a nearby tent. Shortly after, the lizardman soldier came out again, human, the priest invites you in. Tianziong nodded, removed his weapon from his waist, placed it aside, and bent down to enter the central tent. Inside the tent sat a lizardman wearing a robe. The robe was embroidered with green and gold patterns, which, along with the lizardman's natural blue scales, looked quite resplendent. Ancient Saint Priest Tiktata, Purple Tier 3 Hero. A hero unit of the lizardman. It was this ancient saint priest who, while passing by, arranged for the lizardman to come and negotiate. That prevented an incident similar to the last one. Priest Tiktata, Tian Xiong seated himself cross-legged to the side. Tiktata, like an old monk, opened his eyes to reveal brown vertical pupils. Mr. Tian Xiong. Transmigrators could recognize the language of any race, but what Tiktata was speaking was the common language of the Human Federation. And he spoke it very standardly. Tian Xiong forthrightly said, Priest Tiktata, after considering overnight, I have decided to join the Holy Dynasty and become one of its members. Lizardmen was the external appellation. They referred to themselves as the children of the ancient saints, the descendants of the gods. Even though the lizardmen had gradually retreated from the main stage, the term Holy Dynasty still expressed respect for the lizardmen. Mr. Tian Xiong, you must think carefully. After joining, although it will not affect you personally, you will no longer be considered a human and will be managed by us, Tiktata continued. Tian Xiong nodded, yes, I have made my choice. He had already decided yesterday, it was just that he hadn't amassed the required warfire coins. Good, this is yours now. A scroll was pushed towards Tian Xiong. Chapter 860. Tian Xiong took out 2,000 denomination warfire cards from his person, and pushed them forward. Both parties spoke nicely to each other. In fact, their relationship was more like buying protection with money. As the exploration area expanded, more and more lizardmen teams appeared within the city limits. Like his previous method of killing and burying the dead, it obviously no longer worked. Now, paying for stable development wasn't a bad thing. At least, he was much better off than the other transmigrators enslaved by the lizardmen. Tiktata extended a scaly hand and picked up the warfire cards. Tian Xiong also picked up the alliance scroll. The moment his hand touched the scroll, a system prompt appeared beside his ear. Lizardman Alliance Scroll, would you like to change alliance? Change. Tian Xiong thought. Change successful. The next second, Tian Xiong's Book of Lords began to change. The brown cover started to bulge slightly, followed by the emergence of layers of fine scales. It resembled a surface made of crocodile skin. The most up-to-date novellas are published on Fruitnoelo. Alright, do you have any other business? Tiktata asked, seeing that the human did not move. Tian Xiong thought for a moment, remembering the store opened by Fang Hao. He spoke softly, Priest, I wish to establish trade relations with other cities of the Holy Dynasty. You are aware that some human items are also needed by the lizardmen. Tiktata looked at Tian Xiong with brown vertical pupils. What can you bring? Cloth, weapons, food, or various kinds of tools, said Tian Xiong. He also wanted to try his hand at business. Joining the lizardmen was actually an advantage now. Perhaps he could develop from there. Tiktata pondered for a moment, then took out a token made of an unknown metal from his bosom. The token's surface was engraved with a symbol resembling a religious emblem. Take this, hang it on your wagon, and the tribes will know you are one of our own. Whether the trade succeeds depends on your own skills. Tian Xiong was instantly delighted. He respectfully said, Thank you, priest. If I succeed, I will not forget your help. Tiktata continued, All right, we will return tomorrow, and at that time, I will report your matter to Her Majesty the Empress. Tian Xiong also nodded, Okay, then I won't disturb the priest, continue your rest. Tiktata closed his eyes immediately. Tian Xiong then exited the tent. After leaving the tent, the lizardmen surrounding him were no longer as hostile as they were at the beginning. Retrieving his own weapon, Tian Xiong hurriedly left with his people. Capital City. A teleportation screen appeared in the middle of the hall. Fang Hao stepped out from it with Dimitrija. Today, he inspected the production materials of the satellite cities, checked on production, and aimed to increase production volume. He hoped to upgrade the territory's level to 15 sooner. After a tour. Aside from production issues, what also surprised Fang Hao was Grey Bear Reed, who was responsible for clay tile production in the satellite city. She had already reached the 9th rank of warrior, and once she reached the 10th rank, she could become a hero. This news astounded Fang Hao. Normally, for the indigenous people here, it was difficult for some to break through the 8th or 9th rank in their entire lives. Not to mention those bandits without any heritage. Since Grey Bear seemed to have a talent type that allowed quick progression, it was natural to boost her favorability. He rewarded her with a set of purple Temple Guardian's outfit, raising her loyalty from 65 points to 80 points. He also promised that once she reached the 10th rank, he would bring her over to be promoted to a hero. Reed was also happy to comply. After returning to the capital city and having dinner, the maids began to clear the tableware and occasionally glanced over with their big eyes. Ding! The Book of Lords sounded again. When he opened it, it was Tang Qi. That is, the transmigrator who previously dated the daughter of the Blackstone tribe's clan leader. Ever since becoming a satellite city, Tang Qi had been developing his own territory, rarely speaking in the channel, nor had he contacted Fang Hao. Boss Fang Hao, I have information on flying beasts above rank 5. The skin of a rank 5 or higher flying beast is the material for Swift Eagle leather. And Swift Eagle leather is used to make the sails for aerial ships, so Fang Hao had been looking for a congregation of rank 5 or higher flying beasts. Where is it, and what information do you have about the creature? Fang Hao replied. It's on a mountain north of Tasco City, named Ice Bat Monkey, a rank 7 creature, Tang Qi said. Fang Hao frowned, the creature's name didn't sound like it was of the flying type. Why such a strange name, is it possible to slaughter? The names of monsters and beasts in this world were indeed odd and unusual. But the name Ice Bat Monkey still sounded very strange. Tang Qi quickly replied, Boss, I had someone kill one to test, and obtain soft rough leather, which I feel is the material for Swift Eagle leather.